Chapter 2171, Training 3. Inside the academy, Qin Feng was walking alone. His face looked rather grim and his skin had a purplish tinge to it. Endless waves of pain spread across his chest and his face turned increasingly ghastly. Qin Feng. A voice rang out from behind Qin Feng. Qin Feng turned to see a familiar figure. Qin Xian. Qin Xian and Qin Feng were both from the Qin family. When Qin Feng had been famous, Qin Xian would tag along beside him all day long, ingratiating himself to him and following his lead. At that time, he could be considered Qin Feng's closest same-age friend. But after Qin Feng's powers declined, Qin Xian replaced him as the Qin family's upcoming star. He started to grow distant from Qin Feng. Qin Feng looked impassively at the smug-faced Qin Xian. The other teenagers besides Qin Xian all gazed at Qin Feng with disdain. On the contrary, they behaved deferentially toward Qin Xian. They looked exactly like how Qin Xian used to be when he once stood beside Qin Feng. Qin Feng, why didn't you attend faculty head Gus' lesson today? Qin Xian smiled at Qin Feng. Qin Feng's eyes flashed slightly at the mention of faculty head Gu. Then he looked away and started to leave without a single word. But Qin Xian had no intention of letting Qin Feng leave so easily. He lifted his leg to block his way and his icy gaze. Qin Xian smiled again. Qin Feng, faculty head Gu used to be your master, how can you disregard him in this way? That doesn't seem appropriate, right? Gu Wei was the faculty head of the internal cultivation faculty inside the Netherworld Academy. He was also the most respected elder in the Netherworld Academy when Qin Feng first joined the school. After Qin Feng enrolled in the Netherworld Academy, faculty head Gu took him under his wing as his direct disciple, carefully grooming him. A disciple and student were two different things. At that time, Qin Feng's future appeared limitless. But then Qin Feng's powers suddenly declined. No matter what method Gu Wei tried, he could not change Qin Feng's situation. It was a smear upon Gu Wei's reputation and he gradually ignored Qin Feng completely. Qin Feng, it was a pity you didn't go for the lesson today. Another teenager beside Qin Xian piped up. Today, faculty head Gu officially took in Qin Xian as his personal disciple. Qin Feng's face stiffened slightly at his words. That's right. His own powers were declining while Qin Xian's cultivation level was increasing. It was only natural that Gu Wei no longer wanted him. Brother Feng is also faculty head Gus' disciple. In the future, we will be fellow disciples. Qin Xian smiled before pretending to suddenly realize he had said something wrong. He said with fake regret. Sorry Brother Feng, I forgot. You are no longer faculty head Gus' disciple. The academy has assigned a new teacher to you. Excuse me. Qin Feng took a deep breath and turned to leave. This time Qin Xian didn't stop him. He just grinned at Qin Feng's departing profile. Brother Feng, faculty head Gu said that he wants me to participate in the Inter-Academy competition. Qin Xian suddenly spoke again. Qin Feng's footsteps wavered. The Inter-Academy competition. When Gu Wei first took him under his wing, it was because he wanted to groom him for the Inter-Academy competition. But he had changed his candidate to Qin Xian. Qin Feng quietly clenched his fists as he thought about his declining cultivation level. Chapter 2172, Training 4, Qin Xian smiled. He wanted to say something else, but a wailing teenager suddenly charged out from a nearby forest. The top half of his body was bare and flushed red. Nangong Lai, I curse you and all your ancestors. A frantic Lei Yen charged onto the main pathway. The bare top half of his body was covered in bruises. Those marks were not deep, just superficial scratches. However, there were many of them, densely covering his entire back and arms. It looked rather startling. Lei Yen, it's useless for you to curse me. Boss instructed me to do this. 100 lashes a day. Just endure it. Don't worry, I'm going very light on you, you won't suffer any internal injuries. Nangong Lai chased after Lei Yen with a whip. Now and then he would lash out at Lei Yan's body, making loud smacking noises. The two brats charged forward, one chasing after the other. Lei Yan desperately wished to kill Nangong Lai and all his ancestors. but his eyes suddenly hardened and he came to a screeching halt. He nearly collided with Qin Feng. Qin Feng. Lei Yan saw the guy who was the cause of his misery over the past few days. He also noticed his grim expression, as if he would be lifting his hand to punch someone any moment now. Lei Yan instinctively took a step back as he stared vigilantly at Qin Feng. Qin Feng, we already agreed to fight again in 10 days. We still have 5 days to go. You cannot attack me before that. Lei Yan had been cultivating the sealed energy technique and his head was already bloated. After being lashed and chased by Nangong Lai, it was not his fault that his mind was now frazzled and filled with a constant buzzing. He instinctively thought that Qin Feng was here to beat him up. Nangong Lai also halted on seeing Qin Feng. Meanwhile, Qin Xian had overheard everything that Lei Yan just said. "Oh, Brother Feng, you're going to duel with Lei Yan?" Qin Xian laughed. Lei Yan was notorious in the Netherworld Academy. Qin Feng frowned. He looked at the madcap Lei Yan with eyes filled with disdain. "It's not a duel. I just need to endure 10 moves from Qin Feng. Our boss said so. If he can defeat me within 10 moves, our boss will leave him alone in the future." Lei Yan spoke in a daze. He had no intention of dueling with Qin Feng for real. He still wanted to live. "I see." Qin Xian spoke in a meaningful tone. He looked at Qin Feng's back profile. "Brother Feng, I know you look down on the new teacher. But it's just a pity that faculty head Gu no longer wishes to teach you. I feel that you should just obediently comply with the academy's arrangements. After all, apart from the new teacher, who else would be willing to teach a student whose cultivation level is set on declining?" Qin Xian's words were like a hammer, smashing down on Qin Feng's chest. Yes, he was right. Since Qin Feng's powers declined, none of the teachers wanted to be implicated by his problem. All the teachers cared about was producing outstanding students so that they could bring glory upon themselves. At the very least, even if they couldn't produce exceptional students, they would still want to maintain their status quo. But Qin Feng was different. No matter how much effort they put into teaching him, Qin Feng's cultivation level continued to drop. This would only be a blemish on a teacher's reputation. As time passed, all the teachers in the Netherworld Academy started to ignore Qin Feng. Even when he was sitting in class, all the teachers would subconsciously forget about his presence. In the eyes of all the teachers, Qin Feng was now like a plague to be avoided at all costs. Chapter 2173, Training 5. Qin Feng remained silent and only fled the scene with a grim face. Qin Xian was delighted at the sight of Qin Feng's pathetic escape. Meanwhile, Lei Yan was being dragged away by Nangong Lai before he could understand what was happening. "What are you doing? You want to lash me again?" Lei Yan whined. Nangong Lai couldn't resist rolling his eyes. "I have met stupid people, but I have never met someone as stupid as you. Be sure to pray harder for your match in 5 days." "What?" Lei Yan still didn't understand. Nangong Lai pointed at Qin Xian, who had already walked a distance away. "Don't you know who he is?" "No idea." "Qin Xian," Nangong Lai replied. Lei Yan was taken aback. "Qin Xian? The prodigy from the internal cultivation faculty?" Nangong Lai nodded. "He is from the same family as Qin Feng. But they are not on good terms. Brother, I had believed that you might be able to endure 10 moves, but now, I think you have no hope. Didn't you sense the tension between Qin Feng and Qin Xian earlier? And you foolishly went to tell Qin Xian all about the bet between you and Qin Feng. You are just asking for it, giving Qin Feng more reason to beat you up." It didn't take much for Nangong Lai to know that Qin Xian's earlier words were meant to provoke Qin Feng. It was already a rare feat that Qin Feng wasn't angered to death. At this moment, Lei Yan finally realized what a deplorable mistake he made. His face instantly fell. "I didn't do it on purpose." His mind had been all fuzzy. How was he to know what he had been saying? Nangong Lai rolled his eyes again. "Say, do you think Qin Feng will have mercy on me if I apologize to him now?" Lei Yan asked. The corners of Nangong Lai's lips twitched. "What do you think?" Lei Yan felt like crying. "How about I bring a bunch of guys to beat up Qin Xian?" The moment he said it, Lei Yan immediately realized how foolish that was. What a joke. He couldn't even beat Qin Feng. How to beat up the even more powerful Qin Xian? His gang would probably flee like scared rabbits the moment they heard Qin Xian's name. Lei Yan was doomed. Within moments, news of the fight between Qin Feng and Lei Yan and everyone in the entire Netherworld Academy knew of it. Quite a number of them found it very amusing. No matter how much Qin Feng's powers declined, there was no way Lei Yan could manage him. And 10 moves. Qin Feng could probably settle Lei Yan with just one. But everyone had nothing better to do and wanted to see a good show. Especially those who were at odds with Lei Yan. They really wanted to see just how badly Lei Yan would be beaten up, without the protection of the other Lei Tang family teenagers. Qin Feng is fighting Lei Yan? The eyebrows of an elder rose in surprise when he heard of the news. Standing by the side with a humble expression, Qin Xian nodded. I also heard the news of that. When I last saw Brother Feng, I tried to dissuade him from associating with people like Lei Yan, but, humph. The elder snorted coldly. If he wishes to let himself go, no one can help him. Qin Xian, both you and Qin Feng are from the same Qin family. I don't wish to see you follow in his footsteps. Lei Yan didn't have a good reputation in the Netherworld Academy. Apart from his own people from the Lei Tang family, all the other students kept away from him. But Qin Feng was now mixing with a guy like him. It was lamentable. Qin Xian immediately answered, Master, don't worry. I will never let myself go like that. Chapter 2174, 10 Days, 1. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. Qin Feng arrived promptly at the agreed time and location to find that Lei Yan was already there. Apart from Lei Yan, Yi Qingtang, Jing Zhe and the rest were also already there. Qin Feng looks like he is in a bad mood today. Do you think he will take this opportunity to beat me to death? Lei Yan really felt like crying now. Especially after he scanned the arena and realized that quite a number of other students had gathered nearby. The sight made him feel like breaking down into a blubbering heap. All his nemeses were present and accounted for. The Lei Tang family teenagers were also here. They were staring at Lei Yan in exasperation. Qin Feng's powers might have declined, but he was still at the Paragon 8th Heaven level. Within the Netherworld Academy, he was still considered at least above average. Meanwhile, Lei Yan was a subpar piece of garbage. But he still dared to challenge Qin Feng? 10 moves? What a joke. A disparity of 2 whole levels. That alone was enough to completely subdue Lei Yan. I feel a bit dizzy. Boss, what should I do? Lei Yan usually put on a swaggering front, but inwardly he knew very well that he could not defeat anyone. Now seeing the cool-faced Qin Feng, and thinking of his stupid actions a few days ago, he was suddenly worried that he would die here today. Yi Qingtang was full of disdain at the sight of the whimpering Lei Yan. Wipe the snot from your nose. Lei Yan sniffled. Just do exactly what I told you earlier, Yi Qingtang instructed. Lei Yan recalled Yi Qing's earlier instructions. A wave of fear washed over his heart. Taking a deep breath, he finally walked forward. The spectators' excitement and curiosity surged at the sight of Lei Yan stepping forward. Seriously? Is Lei Yan going for real this time? Is he really going to fight against Qin Feng? Does he have a death wish? Lei Yan has always been a fool. But I find it strange that Qin Feng is involved in this. He knows Lei Yan is no match for him. Why did he agree to fight Lei Yan? Do you think he is still the Qin Feng of before? His powers have declined tremendously. By now, he might not even be able to defeat Lei Yan. TSK, a former prodigy has fallen so far. Some of the spectators had come to see Lei Yan make a fool of himself. The others had come to witness Qin Feng's fall. This bunch of teenagers was full of youth and vigor. They were naturally drawn to anything that could offer some excitement and entertainment. Lei Yan was already used to the mockery of outsiders. He was now fully focused on Qin Feng. But Qin Feng's eyes dimmed when he heard those mocking words. He would remain a laughingstock no matter the outcome of this fight. Qin Feng glanced at Yi Qing, who was standing by the side. His slight frown revealed his displeasure. Qin Feng, 10 moves. Just 10 moves, all right. Lei Yan stood in front of Qin Feng. He was very worried that Qin Feng might take the opportunity to sneak in a few more attacks. Qin Feng had already lost his patience. Both Lei Yan and Teacher Yi were like clowns to him. He had enough of them. "Let's go," Qin Feng snapped coldly. Lei Yan quietly swallowed and nodded. Qin Feng struck out in the very next second, startling Lei Yan. A powerful light engulfed Qin Feng as if he was immersed in a holy light. The spectators were stunned by the sight of Qin Feng enveloped in the holy light. Light stream. Lei Yan is using his killer move right from the start? Lei Yan is doomed. Light stream was one of the Qin family's elite moves. Chapter 2175, 10 Days 2, Lei Yan was dumbstruck. He never imagined that Qin Feng would launch such a major move right from the start. "Brother, why so much hate? We can always talk things through." Seeing the holy light about to make contact with him, Lei Yan recalled Yi Qing's earlier instructions. Taking a deep breath, his body swelled up like a ball. What is this technique of Lei Yan's? The crowd was taken aback by Lei Yan's sudden inflation. Even more shocking was that the moment Lei Yan's body ballooned up to the maximum, the breath he had been holding was suddenly unleashed. A hurricane-like cold wind radiated from the bottom of his feet as Lei Yan exhaled. The cold air immediately enveloped Lei Yan. Boom! A loud boom and dust flew everywhere. Qin Feng's attack created a mass of smoke and fog, such that no one could see Lei Yan at all. Qin Feng remained expressionless. The fight was over. Just as Qin Feng was preparing to turn and leave, a gasp rippled across the crowd of spectators. Somewhat dubious, Qin Feng instinctively turned, and was dumbstruck by what he saw. Lei Yan was covered in a thick layer of ice. The ice completely enveloped Lei Yan, as if he was encased inside a huge block of ice. And Qin Feng's earlier attack had landed on that ice. Multiple shards of ice were scattered on the ground, but Lei Yan was completely unharmed. Qin Feng. The spectators were all dumbfounded. Damn, what technique is that? What did Lei Yan do? Shameless, too shameless. I thought Lei Yan had become so bold as to challenge Qin Feng. I didn't expect, utterly shameless. I've really got to give it to him. The spectators snapped out of their daze. The rule of this fight was that Lei Yan would win if he could endure 10 moves from Qin Feng. Now, Lei Yan was hiding inside a big block of ice. How would Qin Feng be able to hit him? They have met shameless people before but have never met a person that shameless. Come out and fight if you have got the guts. At this moment, Lei Yan was just hiding inside the ice. He could see what was happening outside, but couldn't hear the words of the spectators. Qin Feng's face darkened. He never imagined that Lei Yan had such a move. The crowd's discussion became increasingly heated. Even Qin Xian, who had come to watch the fight, was also stunned. But he smiled on seeing Qin Feng's grim face. "Brother Feng, it's just a block of ice. Just shatter it. It shouldn't be that difficult for you, right?" Qin Xian's casual voice drifted into Qin Feng's ears. Qin Feng took a deep breath. This farce seemed to have brought all his long-suppressed feelings to the fore. He was like a clown. Everything he did was a joke to others. His gaze subconsciously drifted over to Yi Qing. He couldn't understand what this teacher Yi was trying to do. He just wanted this to end as soon as possible. Qin Feng took another deep breath and his aura surged. He suddenly unleashed all the power in his body toward Lei Yan. Cracking sounds filled the air as Qin Feng executed a number of consecutive attacks at the ice. Layers of shattered ice flew in all directions. At the sight of the endless stream of shattered ice, Nangong Lai scurried over to Yi Qingtang's side. "Boss, can Lei Yan really withstand 10 moves from Qin Feng?" Chapter 2176, 10 Days, 3, Yi Qingtang crossed her arms over her chest, watching the fight in a relaxed manner. "Make a guess." Nangong Lai. If he could guess, would he have asked? When Yi Qing suggested for Lei Yan to use the ice-sealing power as a defense, Nangong Lai had thought she must be mad. How could a mere layer of ice defend against Qin Feng's powerful attacks? The ice would probably shatter after just a couple of attacks. How could Lei Yan win? But Nangong Lai soon realized something was not quite right. Qin Feng had already launched 3 attacks and the floor was covered in shattered ice shards. But the layer of ice surrounding Lei Yan appeared just as thick as before. It was like The ice layer was thickening continuously. At this point, Qin Feng's aura was in slight disarray. The ice layer appeared endless. His bet with Yi Qing was 10 moves. As long as Lei Yan could hold on for 10 moves, he would lose. If he didn't attack, he would also end up losing. Qin Feng suddenly realized that he had walked into a trap set up by Yi Qing. There was no need for Lei Yan to counterattack at all. As long as he protected himself and held against the attacks, he would win. As Qin Feng continued to attack, Lei Yan remained unharmed inside the layer of ice. The spectators thought they could witness Lei Yan's demise, but after watching for some time, they realized Lei Yan's tactic was truly disgusting. This was a boring fight with no exchange of moves at all. They were just watching Qin Feng hack away at a block of ice. The corners of the lips of Lei Yan's nemesis twitched as they watched. They had never seen Lei Yan so shameless before. Thinking that they wouldn't be able to see Lei Yan getting beaten up today, quite a number of people left in disgust. Qin Feng looked increasingly grave. He had only 2 moves left and all 10 moves would have been used up. He had yet to even touch the corner of Lei Yan's shirt. Qin Feng glanced over the thinned-out crowd and noticed Qin Xian out of the corner of his eye. He saw very clearly the scorn on Qin Xian's face. A Paragon 8 heaven level practitioner was being made a fool by a 6th heaven level. What a disgrace! The noisy crowd gradually dispersed. Qin Feng remained standing there, the surrounding temperature decreased by the pile of ice shards on the ground. The ice shards on him had already melted into bone-chilling ice water, slowly freezing his initial fervor. Qin Feng stopped attacking. Observing the layer of ice around Lei Yan, which was still as thick as before, Qin Feng realized he had already lost this match. He would never be able to shatter the ice layer and make contact with Lei Yan in just 2 more moves. A darkening aura of depression enveloped Qin Feng. He could not understand what that ice layer was. How was it able to let Lei Yan endure consecutive attacks by someone who was 2 levels higher than him? A major sense of failure filled his heart. Qin Feng gave a slightly bitter smile. He then turned to look at Yi Qing. I have lost. He had no idea how to handle Lei Yan. Didn't you say that you are 2 levels higher than Lei Yan and can easily defeat him? Yi Qing looked at Qin Feng, who for the first time displayed his anguish on his face. Yes, Qin Feng replied. Power is important, but brains are just as important. Yi Qing glanced at Lei Yan and stepped forward to stand beside the ice-encased teenager. Qin Feng did not know what Yi Qing was about to do. He only watched with a furrowed brow. Chapter 2177. Gathered, 1. Yi Qing walked over to the ice. Taking out a matchstick, he lit it before placing it on top of the ice. The ice started melting under the high temperature of the fire. He stepped back and after a while, the ice completely melted into water. Like that, he easily resolved it without using any spirit energy or any moves. Lei Yan couldn't hear the sounds outside, and when he saw that Yi Qing had melted his life-saving ice, he screamed, Boss, what are you doing? It's only 8 moves. There are 2 more moves. Lei Yan ran away to stand as far as possible from Yi Qing. He thought that Yi Qing had counted wrongly. Qin Feng, this is not counted. Boss did this. Wait for me, I'll freeze myself again before I take the remaining 2 moves. Lei Yan puffed his cheeks up, preparing to freeze himself again. Before Yi Qing could do anything, Lei Yan froze himself again. She was speechless. This brat clearly had no brain. You used only fire to melt the glacier? Qin Feng questioned Yi Qing with knitted brows. That seemed impossible. If you're not convinced, use a matchstick and try it out for yourself, Yi Qing replied. Qin Feng was skeptical, but he walked over to Lei Yan and lit a matchstick. The glacier started melting when it came into contact with the fire. Lei Yan was shocked. Qin Feng, you're shameless. How could you copy boss? After being scolded by the aggrieved Lei Yan, Qin Feng was speechless. Boss, this fellow has found a way to counter me. Teach me 2 more moves. Lei Yan hollered. Boss method was pretty useful. There's no need for that. Yi Qing sighed. She had to find some way to improve his intelligence. If not, he'll probably die because of his stupidity. Lei Yan was confused. You're indeed more powerful than Lei Yan, but it's precisely because of the power disparity that made you too reliant on your power. Yi Qingtang was honest with Qin Feng. It was impossible for her to train the foolish Lei Yan to become skillful enough to confront Qin Feng with 10 moves in just 10 days. However, that didn't mean that she couldn't train Lei Yan just enough to just take in 10 moves from Qin Feng. Qin Feng was overconfident. He only knew how to attack without carefully thinking about it when Lei Yan used such unorthodox methods. Yi Qingtang had extensive experience in battling those who were stronger than her in her previous lifetime. No one knew better than her that tactfulness was critical in battling stronger opponents. Psychological warfare was critical as well. Qin Feng kept quiet for a moment. "Teacher Yi, I'll go to class tomorrow." It didn't feel good to lose, but Qin Feng realized some problems over this process. He didn't resonate with Yi Qing's little antics. However, he would still stick to his promise and attend Yi Qing's lessons. Anyway, he wouldn't be able to stay in the Netherworld Academy any longer. It didn't matter after all. Qin Feng turned around to leave right after saying those words. He left before Lei Yan could even process everything. He scratched his head and asked, "Boss, what happened? He just admitted defeat like that?" "He's scared that your brains will turn bad if you continue freezing yourself," Yi Qing replied. He was already this dumb. If he continued, wouldn't he truly become a fool? Lei Yan. When did Qin Feng become this thoughtful? Chapter 2178, Gathered, 2. The next morning, Jing Zhe arrived at the classroom early and was surprised when he spotted a figure. Before Jing Zhe could say anything, Yi Qing walked into the classroom. When Yi Qingtang saw the figure, she was stunned. Nangong Lai and Lei Yan, who followed behind her, had the same reaction. Yunqin. Nangong Lai was stupefied. Wasn't that Yunqin who suddenly appeared in the classroom? What was going on? Nangong Lai and Lei Yan exchanged glances and they were both perplexed. Wasn't it Qin Feng who lost yesterday? But why did Yunqin come instead? Yunqin, why did you come? Nangong Lai was acquaintances with Yunqin, so he spoke up. Yunqin smiled at Nangong Lai before he took a chair and sat down, looking at Yi Qingtang casually. Nangong Lai. Hey, what happened? Why does it seem like he's coming back? I clearly remember that it should be Qin Feng who's supposed to turn up today. Lei Yan was confused. Yunqin was now part of the medical faculty. He should be spending time on elixirs. Why did he come? Who knows? Nangong Lai was also confused. He tried to convince Yunqin to come previously and Yunqin only gave him a smile without planning to come. But now what happened? Could it be that Yunqin had posed as Qin Feng to challenge me yesterday? Is that why he's here today instead of Qin Feng? Lei Yan guess. Nangong Lai subconsciously walked away. Stupidity was contagious. Lei Yan didn't appear to notice and was still immersed in his wild guesses. Yunqin is part of the medical faculty. It's not entirely impossible for him to create an elixir that would help him disguise as someone else. Could it be that Qin Feng didn't want to challenge me so he got Yunqin to pose as himself? Yunqin is such a poor thing, he couldn't say no to Qin Feng and had to. Lei Yan was even more convinced now. He was completely unaware that Nangong Lai and Jing Zhe were judging him as if they were looking at a fool. I'm not that lame. A cold, unfeeling voice came from Lei Yan's back. Lei Yan was stunned, taking 2 steps back when he realized Qin Feng suddenly appeared behind him. Lei Yan. As Qin Feng looked at Lei Yan, he couldn't help but feel that challenging a fool like Lei Yan was forever a part of his dark past. Teacher Yi. Qin Feng didn't want to talk to Lei Yan anymore. Once he saw Yi Qing, he found a seat near Yi Qing and sat down. Is this a package deal? Nangong Lai touched his chin. He felt that Yunqin's appearance today has got something to do with Qin Feng and Lei Yan's fight yesterday. Was Yunqin also there yesterday? Though Yunqin wasn't the most powerful out of the bunch, he was extremely intelligent. There must be a reason behind his sudden appearance today. Soon after, Mu Xing also arrived. She hadn't noticed that there were 2 more people in the classroom and just found a seat that was nearest to Yi Qing and sat down, behaving well. Yi Qingtang looked at the 6 who were finally gathered together and her eyes crinkled into a smile. Great, they were finally gathered. Chapter 2179, Gathered, 3. As usual, Yi Qingtang had Qin Feng and Yun Chen tell her about the cultivation techniques which they had practiced before. Yun Chen's cultivation techniques were more or less normal. When Qin Feng spouted out a whole list of high-level techniques, all the other teenagers were completely stunned. Damn, is Qin Feng some kind of freak? He is still so young but has already practiced those techniques? Just hearing the list of Qin Feng's techniques was enough to make Lei Yan feel like kneeling on the floor and kowtowing. Those techniques were extremely profound and he had tried a couple before. But he was unable to comprehend a single thing and ended up giving up. But Qin Feng had practiced those techniques to at least the 5th level. Nangong Lai crossed his hands behind his head. You're right. Qin Feng was already famous before entering the Netherworld Academy. If not for the fact that his powers suddenly regressed, he would probably be at least at the Divine Lord stage. Those at the Divine Lord level were all famously powerful practitioners. And Qin Feng was still in his teens. In the entire Netherworld Academy, the number of people who could reach the Divine Lord level before the age of 20 could be counted on one hand. Apart from those freaks ranked in the top 10, no one else would even dare to dream of such an achievement. Lei Yan gasped at Nangong Lai's words. But on second thought he asked quietly, why did Qin Feng's powers suddenly regress? Nangong Lai shrugged. No one knows. The president personally checked him over but didn't find anything strange. His powers just kept declining. He is only at the Paragon 8 heaven level now. I think that it is still regressing. The continuous decline of a person's powers was a very strange problem. Yi Qingtang did not discover anything weird in Qin Feng's practice methods. So it appeared that the problem lay with himself. She called Qin Feng over to her side and made use of her deity ocean to probe his body condition. Qin Feng's physical condition looked rather normal, but when Yi Qingtang used the power of her deity ocean to analyze his body, she discovered that he had hidden chaotic energy inside him, which was constantly diluting his own spirit energy. Chaotic mental demon. Yi Qingtang was stunned. Qin Feng looked at Yi Qingtang with confusion. Yi Qingtang furrowed her brows slightly. There were countless young talented prodigies in the world. But few of those who became famous when they were young would eventually develop to become truly elite powerful practitioners. The reason was because many of those talented teenagers would develop a terrifying type of mental demon after reaching a certain stage. These mental demons were undetectable. It was only 200 years later that a certain mighty practitioner discovered the existence of these deeply hidden mental demons. The symptoms of chaotic mental demons varied from person to person. Some went completely mad, some ended up destroying their energy channels and becoming paralyzed. Qin Feng's situation appeared to be the second type. And all practitioners who developed chaotic mental demons had a common point. Their bloodlines were very aggressive and ferocious. For example, the Jiang family's heavenly demon bloodline also had a certain chance of developing chaotic mental demons. If Yi Qingtang remembered correctly, the Qin family's bloodline was called the Killer Bloodline. The Killer Bloodline had a very high ferocity. There were already a number of prodigies in the Qin family who during their prime suddenly lost their senses and went into a murderous rampage, attacking even their own kin. Chapter 2180, Gardner, 1. Unless there were some other external factors, it was probably because those people had developed chaotic mental demons. But those incidents became increasingly rare and Qin Feng was probably the first person in the Qin family over the past 10,000 years to have developed chaotic mental demons. In present times, chaotic mental demons were like a nightmare that one could never wake up from. Once it developed, no matter how powerful the practitioner was, he would be ruined. But 300 years into the future, this was no longer a difficult problem. Qin Feng. Yi Qing looked at him. Qin Feng turned toward Yi Qing. He had no idea what chaotic mental demons were. But he didn't harbor any high hopes for this teacher. He was just fulfilling his promise and passing the time. I will set aside an area outside the classroom for you, Yi Qing said. By the side, Nangong Lai and Lei Yan pricked up their ears. What? To think that boss held this kid in such high regard? Immediately setting aside a special cultivation area just for him? Qin Feng was unimpressed by Yi Qing's special treatment. He just gave a bitter smile. He was the most powerful person in this group. As the teacher, It was only natural that she would hold him in high regard. It was a pity that she was just wasting her efforts. His powers would continue to decline. A prodigy since young, Qin Feng was already used to preferential treatment from adults. Just as everyone believed that Yi Qing was showing favoritism toward Qin Feng, she suddenly took out a cloth bag from her space ring and placed it in Qin Feng's hand. Lei Yan and Nangong Lai felt extremely jealous. A special cultivation area? Fine. But now, boss was giving him a treasure, right in front of everyone? This was so inappropriate. Jealous. Qin Feng glanced at the cloth bag in his hand and then dubiously at Yi Qing. Teacher Yi, you don't need to waste any effort on me. It would be better if you take this treasure back. Qin Feng spoke nonchalantly. Teachers were indeed all the same. Treasure? Yi Qing was taken aback. Qin Feng glanced at the cloth bag in his hand. Holding her forehead, Yi Qing said, "Open it and take a look." Qin Feng opened it. Nangong Lai and Lei Yan stretched out their necks, trying to take a look too. When the bag was opened, there was no treasure to be seen at all. It was just a bag full of round seeds. Qin Feng was stunned. I think you have misunderstood. These are flower seeds. I want you to plant these seeds in the area that I will set aside for you. Yi Qing spoke calmly. Qin Feng, plant seeds? Him. Nangong Lai and Lei Yan nearly burst out laughing. Formidable. Boss, we get you. Boss must have felt that this Qin Feng was too arrogant. And so to punish him, he was being made a gardener. The corners of Qin Feng's lips twitched. But in the end he didn't say anything. With a bitter smile, he took the seeds. Anyway, he was just passing time. Whatever. As he said he would, Yi Qing lifted her hand and cleared an open space in the forest outside the classroom for Qin Feng. Qin Feng put away his sword and picked up a hoe. As Nangong Lai and the others attended lessons in the classroom, Qin Feng quietly planted the seeds outside. Lei Yan felt rather pained at the sight. Brother, I really couldn't tell that our boss is so petty. Torturing Qin Feng like this just because Qin Feng was unwilling to attend his lessons. Planting seeds. Is this really something that young masters should do? Chapter 2181, Medicine Faculty, 1. Yi Qingtang left first after settling Lei Yan and the rest. The others were easy to manage. They would be fine as long as she could find suitable cultivation methods for them. Yun Chen was the exception. Yun Chen was from the medicine faculty and specialized in refining medicine and elixirs. Yi Qingtang had always been a loner in her previous life. She was being hunted and she didn't have much money on her. As a result, she didn't dare to venture into crowded areas and she would refine most of the elixirs she needed. On top of that, she had always wanted to restore her spirit root, and so spent a lot of time and effort on medicine cultivation. If it was just about giving pointers on cultivating medicines, Yi Qingtang would not have any problems with that. But Yun Chen's case was more special. As a result of his bloodline, his success rate at cultivating medicines was extremely low. Yi Qingtang had to find other ways to resolve this. The cultivation of medicines was also one of the categories in the Inter-Academy competition. Yi Qingtang only had 6 students. To get that wind-calming pearl, she would not give up on either one of them. Half a day later, Yi Qingtang finally came up with a solution. Yun Chen's problem lay in his bloodline. They just had to make his bloodline go temporarily dormant when he was cultivating medicines. This method sounded fantastical. But Yi Qingtang knew of the existence of such an elixir from her previous life. However, the process to refine that elixir was rather complicated and Yi Qingtang didn't have an elixir refining tripod. She set her sights on the medicine faculty. The medicine faculty had many tools for refining elixirs. As a teacher of the Netherworld Academy, it should not be difficult for Yi Qingtang to borrow an alchemy lab. At this thought, Yi Qingtang hurried over to the medicine faculty. Just as Yi Qingtang was prepared to find a medicine faculty teacher to negotiate the use of a lab, she inadvertently discovered a few familiar figures there. What do you mean by that? Can't we come to the medicine faculty? Lei Yan's loud shouts drifted over to Yi Qingtang's ears. Yi Qingtang glanced over and saw that Lei Yan and the rest, who were supposed to be practicing in the classroom, had all appeared in the medicine faculty. Apart from Qin Feng, who was diligently planting seeds, all the other 5 students were present and accounted for. At this moment, Lei Yen and the rest were arguing over something with a few teenagers from the medicine faculty. "Brother, don't be so distant. We just want to make friends. Look, our academy has always encouraged students from the other faculties to establish good ties with the medicine faculty, right? Give us the elixirs you have refined and we will return the favor in the future." Nangong Lai smiled. The medicine faculty students all specialized in medicine cultivation. Although they were only students now, they would become full-fledged alchemists after leaving the Netherworld Academy. Alchemists were highly respected positions in all domains. They might not be very powerful, but they could refine all sorts of highly sought-after elixirs. The more skilled an alchemist was, the more powerful practitioners he would have on his side. To obtain high-quality elixirs, those powerful practitioners were more than happy to protect those alchemists. This unspoken rule was also present in the Netherworld Academy. Most of the students here would try their best to establish good relations with the medicine faculty students. Although those teenagers were just students now, to be able to enter a prestigious school like the Netherworld Academy, every single one of them was exceptionally talented in medicine cultivation. Chapter 2182, Medicine Faculty, 2. Even now as students, every single one of them would be considered pretty good alchemists outside of the academy. The students from the other faculties would naturally be able to obtain more elixirs to help in their cultivation if they could become friends with these teenagers. Lei Yen and the rest had been negligent in this aspect as they were already prepared to be kicked out of the school. The notion of making friends with the medicine faculty students did not even cross their minds. But the appearance of Yi Qingtang had given them hope. At Yun Chen's reminder, the entire group had rushed over to the medicine faculty to see if they could find a few students to secure a good future supply of elixirs. It was a reasonable plan, but a pity, things did not always go according to plan. After searching for some time, none of the medicine faculty students were willing to partner with them. Those medicine faculty students were no fools. They had limited elixirs on hand and would naturally wish to supply students who had a brighter future ahead of them. As for Lei Yen and his gang, they did not meet their criteria. There had long been rumors circulating the Netherworld Academy about how these people would be kicked out soon. The academy had already designated them as hopeless, and it was only natural that the medicine faculty students would not want to waste their elixirs on this group. "Aren't you guys with Yunchin? Just get Yunchin to refine some elixirs if you need them?" One of the medicine faculty teenagers spoke up impatiently. He looked at Lei Yen and his gang like they were just a swarm of pesky flies. A bunch of jokers like them wanted to ally with the medicine faculty students? Only a fool would give them elixirs. Lei Yen and the rest were taken aback by the teenagers' words. They glanced at Yunchin. Yunchin maintained his smile. "Yes, you guys have Yunchin, right? Why are you looking for others? Moreover, apart from him, do you think anyone here would give you elixirs?" Another teenager added rudely. Nangong Lai had been speaking in a cordial manner, but his face now darkened at the words of those two teenagers. He had known Yunchin from before. They had entered the Netherworld Academy at the same time and used to belong to the martial arts faculty together. But because of Yun Chen's weak physical condition, he had been transferred to the medicine faculty. However, Yun Chen's situation at the medicine faculty was not without its difficulties. His drifting cloud bloodline drastically reduced the success rate of his medicine cultivation, and as a result, he was completely unable to supply others. These two were both from the medicine faculty. How could they not know about Yun Chen's situation? They had purposely singled out Yun Chen just to make him look bad. "Don't give us any if you don't want to. Do you think we are that desperate for it?" Nangong Lai put up a brave front. "Even if you are desperate for it, no one will give it to you. I advise you not to waste any more time here." The medicine faculty teenagers smirked before turning to leave. Lei Yen wanted to say something else, but Nangong Lai stopped him. "Don't waste your breath. Can't you tell they look down on us?" The medicine faculty teenagers would only give out elixirs to those whom they deemed worthy. And this bunch had been deemed unworthy by those teenagers. Lei Yen had come to the medicine faculty full of hope and expectations. But now, having failed to ally and even endured the ridicule of others, his face looked very grim. Just as they turned to leave, they bumped into a slender figure. Chapter 2183, Medicine Faculty, 3, Boss? Lei Yan stared in shock at Yi Qing, who suddenly popped up behind them. When did Boss arrive? Nangong Lai and the rest were also startled by the sight of Yi Qing. They had no idea when he had appeared and whether he heard the cold mockery of those two teenagers. Having been caught in this independent mission, they couldn't help shifting their gaze guiltily. Yi Qingtang gazed at Lei Yan and his gang without any expression. Having been forcibly dragged over, Jing Zhe and Mu Xing also lowered their heads the moment they saw Yi Qing. "What are you all doing here?" Yi Qingtang surveyed her surroundings. The group exchanged looks, but none of them dared to answer. If Boss knew that they had made the independent decision to come here and try to form an alliance with the medicine faculty students, and ended up being sneered at, they would probably be dead meat. "Oh, Boss, nothing much. Yunchen wanted to get something from the medicine faculty, and so we came along with him." Nangong Lai had the quickest mind, and he didn't know how much Yi Qing overheard, so he made up an excuse on the spot. Would Yi Qing not know what they were actually doing? Nevertheless, inwardly, Yi Qingting felt like laughing at the sight of those nervous-looking teenagers. Apart from Mu Xing, the other teenagers were actually older than Yi Qingting. She felt rather amused by how fearful they were of her. If this bunch of brats knew that they were slightly older than her, would they still be willing to call her boss? "Boss, why are you at the medicine faculty?" Nangong Lai hastily asked. He saw that Yi Qing didn't respond and thought that they had managed to squirm their way through. "I want to borrow the use of an alchemy lab," Yi Qingtang answered. Everyone was shocked at Yi Qing's words. The teenagers immediately thought of the only medicine faculty student in their group, Yunchen. Yi Qing had made arrangements for all of them except for Yunchen. They thought that he had forgotten about him. They didn't realize that he hadn't. Otherwise, he wouldn't have so quickly come here to help Yunchen borrow a lab. Yi Qingtang ignored the curious gazes of those teenagers and looked straight at Yunchen. "Bring me to the teacher in charge of the alchemy labs." Yunchen glanced at Yi Qing as if he wanted to say something. But in the end, he just nodded in silence and led the way. Originally, Yunchen wanted to tell Yi Qing that he had his own alchemy lab, albeit the lowest grade one. Nevertheless, he did not have to do all this for him. After all, with his situation, even the best lab would be useless in enhancing the success rate of his medicine cultivation. But looking at Yi Qing's serious expression, Yunchen ended up swallowing his words. Alchemy labs could be categorized into different grades. The higher the grade, the better one's medicine cultivation would be. Most students used low-grade student labs. If one had sufficient talent, they could apply to have a mid-grade alchemy lab. Teachers typically had the use of the rare high-grade alchemy labs. Most students were not allowed to set a single foot inside. It was rumored that there was a Grand Master level lab inside the medicine faculty. It was prepared for an alchemist Grand Master, as the Netherworld Academy had once produced an alchemist Grand Master. Chapter 2184, Medicine Faculty, 4. That alchemist was not very powerful, but no one in the second domain would dare to offend him. The Grand Master level elixirs that he could refine were the most sought-after treasures by all practitioners. Many factions and powerful practitioners spent a lot of effort to draw this alchemist to their side. It was said that countless practitioners in the second domain would be more than willing to do his bidding. Yunchen explained the situation of the alchemy labs, providing Yi Qingtang with a general idea. As she was now a teacher, she wondered if she could get a high-grade alchemy lab. With Yi Qingtang's medicine cultivation skills, the boost offered by a higher-grade lab would be insignificant. Nevertheless, the higher the better. Yunchen soon led Yi Qing and the rest to the teacher in charge of the alchemy labs. The man was an elder in his 60s. He had a snow-white beard and a face full of wrinkles. He looked very stern. There were a bunch of medicine faculty students standing beside him. Every month, the medicine faculty students would bring their best elixirs over here to be graded by this teacher. If the elixir was good enough, they could apply for a better grade alchemy lab. The teenagers whom Lei Yan and the others were speaking to earlier were also in the group. Teacher Feng. Yunchen made his way through the crowd and bowed politely. Teacher Feng lifted his head slightly and glanced at Yunchen. After realizing it was Yun Chen, he gave a slight frown and said, "Yun Chen, you should know your situation." Teacher Feng's tone was mild, but the meaning behind his words was clear. With Yun Chen's medicine cultivation abilities, he really shouldn't be here. It was already a charity to let him have the use of a low-grade alchemy lab. Bitter amusement flashed across Yun Chen's eyes, but he put on a politely genial smile. "Teacher Feng, I am here today because of my teacher. Teacher Yi wishes to see you." All the medicine faculty teenagers instinctively glanced over. Teacher Feng also raised his eyes again and looked past Yun Chen to see the ordinary-looking, skinny youth. "Teacher Yi?" Teacher Feng's voice was low. Yi Qingtang stepped forward. "I am Yi Qing. I wish to apply for a teacher alchemy lab." Yun Chen was stunned by Yi Qing's words. He thought that Yi Qing would just try to help him get a mid-grade alchemy lab. But he never expected Yi Qing to immediately ask for a high-grade alchemy lab meant for teachers. Lei Yan and the rest were also shocked. Lei Yan tugged at Nangong Lai's sleeve. "Our boss is so open-handed. He is requesting a high-grade alchemy lab for Yun Chen right from the get-go." Nangong Lai was not as optimistic as Lei Yan. Teacher Feng frowned slightly. He sized up Yi Qingtang and said, "Only teachers from the medicine faculty can use teacher alchemy labs. Teacher Yi looks very unfamiliar to me. You don't look like one of the medicine faculty members." Yi Qingtang was taken aback. Was that the case? From what she had heard, she only knew that high-grade alchemy labs were meant for teachers. She didn't know that there was a distinction between the teachers of the different faculties. Chapter 2185, Medicine Faculty, 5. "I am not a teacher at the medicine faculty," Yi Qingtang admitted. Teacher Feng showed no surprise. He glanced at Yun Chen again. "I heard that Yun Chen has been assigned to a new teacher. I wonder if you are the one?" "Yes." Yi Qingtang nodded. Teacher Feng nodded. The other medicine faculty students watched the scene with glittery eyes, all expecting to watch a good show. Yi Qing was not a teacher from the medicine faculty and had no use for an alchemy lab. Anyone could guess that she was asking for an alchemy lab for Yun Chen. "Teacher Yi, you just joined the Netherworld Academy and probably don't understand much of our medicine faculty procedures. Every student here has their own alchemy lab. Even though you are Yun Chen's teacher, you are not part of the medicine faculty." Also, Teacher Feng glanced at Yun Chen. "With Yun Chen's abilities, it is already considered generous of us to let him have the use of a low-grade alchemy lab. There was not even a need to consider anything else. He didn't have the right to apply for them." Teacher Feng's words were still considered rather polite. But his disregard for Yun Chen was evident in his voice. Around him, the medicine faculty students secretly smiled. What the hell? Has this Yun Chen gone stupid? He thought that he could apply for a better alchemy lab just because he got a new teacher? Never mind. Even if we give him a Grand Master level alchemy lab, what can he produce? Even my 10-year-old younger brother can produce better elixirs than him. It is just a waste of our faculty resources to let him stay here. I heard that Yun Chen will be kicked out of the academy soon? Why all this fuss now? He should know his place. The teenagers whispered to each other. They stared at Yun Chen with maliciousness. Yun Chen was a smear on the name of the medicine faculty. The Netherworld Academy medicine faculty had once produced a Grand Master alchemist. But with Yun Chen's abilities, even a medicine cultivation student from a normal academy was better than him. His presence here was just a smear upon their reputation. Yun Chen maintained his smile as if he didn't hear their mocking words. But Yi Qingtang saw and heard everything. A frown was on her face. "Teacher Feng, I think you misunderstand." Teacher Feng, "Oh?" Yi Qingtang continued. "I am the one who wants to use the alchemy lab, not Yun Chen." Teacher Feng and the rest were all stunned by Yi Qing's words. "Why do you need an alchemy lab?" Teacher Feng asked. "To refine medicine, of course," Yi Qing replied. Teacher Feng. At this, even Lei Yan and his gang were shocked. What did they hear? Boss wanted to refine medicine? What kind of joke was this? Yun Chen looked at Yi Qing with astonishment. He really couldn't imagine this teacher refining medicines. Teacher Feng was stunned for quite a long while before he finally snapped out of it. "Teacher Yi, are you joking? You want to refine medicine? Yes, is there a problem with that? Yi Qing asked. The corners of Teacher Feng's lips twitched slightly. Problem? A big problem. Where did this fellow come from, requesting for an alchemy lab from the medicine faculty? Did this teacher think that making medicines was like rolling balls of dirt? What a farce. Chapter 2186, Alchemy, 1. Teacher Feng's expression was awful. He simply couldn't understand why this newcomer, Teacher Yi, tried so hard to get hold of an alchemy lab for Yunchen without even knowing much about him. But now, he could tell that the new teacher was completely oblivious and had no self-awareness. You're not part of the medicine faculty. Pardon me for not being able to lend you the alchemy lab. Refining elixirs? He probably couldn't even differentiate the herbs. Teacher Feng, can I let Teacher Feng use my alchemy lab? Yunchen asked. Yunchen also didn't know why Yi Qing suddenly had the idea of refining elixirs, but since he was his teacher, he couldn't just stand by and allow him to be embarrassed in front of everyone. Teacher Feng's brows knitted. The alchemy lab was allocated to you, so it's your decision to make. However, I have to remind you that the medicine faculty allocates a limited amount of herbs to every student. You'll have to find ways to replenish it if they run out. The elixirs refined by you in the past month did not even satisfy the lowest standards set by the medicine faculty. You'll have to consider carefully whether you can refine enough elixirs this month before you listen to just anyone and waste the herbs. Teacher Feng made himself clear. He wasn't going to stop Yunchen from lending others the alchemy lab, but they wouldn't give out any more herbs other than the ones allocated to Yunchen. If Yi Qing wanted to have the herbs, he would have to take them from Yunchen's quota or purchase them on his own. For a teacher not belonging to the medicine faculty to want to refine elixirs, it sounded like a joke to Teacher Feng. How different would it be from a male wanting to give birth to children? Teacher Feng wasn't the only one who felt that way. The students from the medicine faculty also snickered when they heard it. Not only was Yunchen useless, his teacher even turned out to be crazy. It was beyond amusing. Okay, Yunchen agreed without feeling angry at all. However, Yi Qingtang noticed Teacher Feng's sarcasm and disdain for Yunchen. Am I right to say that the elixirs refined by me have nothing to do with the medicine faculty? Yi Qingtang suddenly asked. Teacher Feng looked at Yi Qing as though he was looking at an idiot. Of course, if you prepare your own herbs, the results certainly have nothing to do with the medicine faculty. With that being said, if you damage anything in the alchemy lab, you'll have to compensate, Teacher Feng said. All right. Yi Qingtang nodded and turned around to speak to Yunchen. Take me to your alchemy lab. Yunchen was stunned and paused for a moment before he nodded and left with everyone to head towards the alchemy lab. Teacher Feng and the youths from the medicine faculty watched them leave, their gazes filled with disdain. Nonsense, Teacher Feng lamented. He wasn't approving of this Teacher Yi who just disregarded rules. The medicine faculty was different from other faculties and they had a relatively fixed set of teachers. Why did he come and cause trouble even when he didn't belong to the medicine faculty? To think that the youth even wanted to refine elixirs? Lei Yan and the others ran behind Yi Qing and Yunchen. Lei Yan couldn't help but ask, Boss, are you really going to refine elixirs? What else would I do? Yi Qingtang replied. Lei Yan. I can't tell it all. Boss, please stop joking around. Chapter 2187, Alchemy, 2. Teacher Yi, you don't need to do that for me. My success rate is indeed not high. I guess I'm not suitable to become an alchemist after all. Yunchen thought that Yi Qing mentioned he knew how to refine elixirs all because of him. After all, no one would believe that Yi Qing knew how to refine elixirs. It has nothing to do with you. I want to refine elixirs. Yi Qingtang didn't know how to react. Why didn't they believe her? Originally, Yi Qingtang had planned to repay the medicine faculty with some high-quality elixirs if they let her use an alchemy lab. But now, it seemed like there was no need for her to do that. Although Yi Qingtang wasn't a true alchemist, with 300 years of experience from her past lifetime, she learned almost everything, including things that she shouldn't have learned. Back then when she was chased after by Yi Yu and the others, how could she possibly afford to purchase elixirs? The only solution was for her to refine elixirs herself. She could safely say that she was better than most alchemists in this century. After all, Her 300 years' worth of experience was to be reckoned with. However, Yun Chen and the others didn't feel too good about it even when Yi Qingtang was filled with confidence. But they didn't dare say anything to ruin their teacher's confidence. Brother, why is boss being crazy again? I'm not worried about the herbs, since I can buy them if boss can't afford them. I'm more worried about those processes. I just got a headache from looking at it once. If he's going to just do it and ruin everything, what's going to happen to Yun Chen? Lei Yan started whispering to Nangong Lai. The alchemy lab belonged to Yun Chen and his success rate wasn't that high to begin with. If Yi Qing were to join and further create a mess, Yun Chen would be expelled from the academy when he doesn't pass the medicine faculty's assessment next month. Nangong Lai had no idea what was going on and he could only whisper to Yun Chen, "Have you thought it through?" Yun Chen smiled. "Since Teacher Yi wants to do it, I'll just let him be. Anyway, I won't be able to stay here any longer regardless." Yun Chen was clear that his body made it impossible for him to achieve higher heights in martial arts, while the drifting cloud bloodline made it impossible for him to be a true alchemist. The only reason he stayed on was because he thought that Yi Qing was different from other teachers and he wanted to have it easier during his remaining time at the academy. Nangong Lai's lips twitched but he ended up not saying anything. He just patted Yun Chen on the shoulder. "Senior sister, do you want to help and persuade boss? Don't do this to Yun Chen." Lei Yan made his way to Mu Xing, calling her senior sister even when she was only at his chest level. Everyone knew that Yi Qing doted on Mu Xing the most and favored girls much more than boys. Mu Xing lifted her head, looking at Lei Yan without any emotions. "You're doubting boss." Mu Xing suddenly frowned. "Lei Yan." Mu Xing moved her fingers and her puppet suddenly jumped onto Lei Yan's shoulder and its hands were on Lei Yan's neck. "If you continue doubting boss, I'll strangle you to death." Mu Xing's eyes crinkled and the puppet suddenly tightened its grip over Lei Yan's neck. Lei Yan was stunned and he quickly put his hands over his neck to protect himself. When did you become so good at controlling the puppet?" The puppet moved so quickly, not even sparing him any time to react. Chapter 2188, Alchemy, 3. Hadn't Mu Xing been struggling to even move the puppet an inch before? What had happened? Now she could even make the puppet attack. Mu Xing glanced at Lei Yan. With a curl of her finger, she summoned the puppet back. Lei Yan clutched at his throat in shock. He could still feel a slight prickly pain where the puppet touched him. He really couldn't tell. Was Mu Xing that convinced by boss? He couldn't even express any doubts? "I say, little senior sister, please clear your muddled brain. As much as you worship boss, please have some sense. How in the world would boss know how to refine medicine?" Just as the few teenagers were muttering amongst themselves, Yun Chen led them to his alchemy lab. The group was speechless at the sight of the small, dilapidated room. Even though they didn't know much about the medicine faculty, they could tell that this was definitely the lousiest lab in the entire faculty. "Come in." Yun Chen opened the door. All sorts of medicinal ingredients were scattered on the floor of the small lab. The cool-down tripod was filled with charred black ashes. The smell of burnt herbs permeated the entire room. Yi Qingting. Feeling somewhat awkward, Yun Chen swept the medicinal ingredients on the floor to the side. "Teacher Yi, my success rate at cultivating medicines is very low. So, I have not had the chance to clean this tripod." Apart from those scattered medicinal herbs and failed elixirs, Lei Yan and the rest discovered a bottle of completed elixirs. "You refined this? Not bad." To lessen Yun Chen's embarrassment, Nangong Lai took up the bottle with a smile. He opened the bottle. Yun Chen wanted to stop him but didn't manage to in time. The moment Nangong Lai opened the bottle, an indescribable smell spread across the small room. That smell? Lei Yan nearly threw up in disgust, while Nangong Lai's face turned green. "Yun Chen, what do you have inside here?" Yun Chen cleared his throat softly. "Cypress elixir." Cypress elixirs were a type of medicine that could enhance one's vital essence. One of their special characteristics was their exceptionally fragrant smell, Nangong Lai. He had been blind to Yun Chen's talents. He never knew that Yun Chen had the ability to create such a heaven-defying, aberrant elixir. How was this a cypress elixir? Even the 100 poison elixir probably had a better smell than this? Nangong Lai quietly closed the bottle and retreated to the side. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang scanned the alchemy lab. Compared to her medicine cultivation environment in the wilderness in her previous life, this place was much better. Yunchen, stay here. The rest of you go back and cultivate, Yi Qingtang instructed. Lei Yan and the rest didn't dare to object. They obediently went back to practice. Before leaving, they all shot Yunchen a take care look. Yunchen, what herbs do you have here? Yi Qingtang asked. Yunchen immediately listed them out. The medicine faculty provided an ample supply of medicinal herbs, so much so that the other students would never be able to use up their store. But for Yunchen, who was very adept at destroying elixirs, it was not enough. As Yi Qingtang listened to Yunchen, she knew that the scant herbs that he had on hand were far from enough. She didn't waste any words but just wrote down a list of medicinal herbs. She then took an empty space ring and handed it to Yunchen. Bring me back all the medicinal herbs on this list. Yunchen took the list and the space ring. He scanned the list, and his heart nearly leaped out of his chest. Teacher Yi, all these? You need them all? Yunchen was from the medicine faculty and had seen his fair share of herbs. But for the herbs which Yi Qing had listed, some of them he had only heard of before. Chapter 2189. Stop joking one. Yes, go and buy them now. Yi Qing waved him off before starting to clean up the tripod, which was filled with failed elixirs. Yunchen looked dubious, but since Yi Qing had given the instructions, he had no choice but to comply. While Yunchen was off getting the herbs, Yi Qingtang soon cleaned up the tripod. Compared to her previous life when she had to hide and could only make use of a basic tripod in the wilderness to refine elixirs, this low-grade alchemy lab was already considered a luxury. Yi Qingtang estimated that it would be a period of time before Yunchen would return. She strolled around the alchemy lab and swept up all the medicinal herbs on the floor. It had been a long time since Yi Qingtang had personally refined elixirs. While in the first domain, she never had a day when she could settle down enough to do so. Looking at the sparse medicinal herbs she had on hand now, Yi Qingtang glanced at the alchemy book laid open on the table. Cypress elixir. Yi Qingtang scanned the page and immediately knew that it contained the recipe for refining cypress elixirs. Cypress elixirs were considered mid-grade elixirs and were often sold at auctions. It was not considered a rare elixir. Yi Qingtang looked at the cypress elixir recipe and then at Yunchen's bottle of cypress elixir. It looked like she had underestimated the impact of Yunchen's bloodline. To be able to refine a cypress elixir like this was indeed a rare skill. Since it would be some time before Yunchen would return, Yi Qingtang tidied up the medicinal herbs and prepared to warm up her own skills. Yunchen had already gotten most of the herbs needed by Yi Qing, but some rare herbs could not be found on such short notice. Yunchen placed orders for those herbs before bringing back a fully packed space ring back to the alchemy lab. He pushed open the door. The temperature inside the alchemy lab was already much higher than the outside. A fragrant smell spread out together with the heat. Yunchen immediately recognized the smell. Cypress elixir? Yunchen was taken aback. He was very familiar with this smell. This was the fragrance of the cypress elixir. Yunchen might not be able to cultivate a real cypress elixir, but this was a frequent scent produced by the other medicine faculty students. For the cypress elixir, the more crisp and fragrant it was, the higher its quality. With just a few sniffs, Yunchen could already feel his mind becoming much clearer. Where was this smell coming from? Yunchen was confused. Scanning the room, he realized that his tripod, which was previously filled with ashes, was now burning with a vigorous fire. A completed elixir was upon the roaring flame. Roasted by the fire, the fragrance of the elixir filled the entire lab. Was that the cypress elixir? Yunchen stared in astonishment at the tripod. He just kept staring at the sweet-smelling elixir in the tripod. Although he had smelled many cypress elixirs before, none of them could compare to this. Even the cypress elixirs cultivated by the medicine faculty teachers during their demonstrations were not as fragrant as this. Where did this cypress elixir come from? Could it be? A startling notion surfaced in Yunchen's mind. but he immediately quelled it the moment it appeared. He had not been away for that long. Yi Qing could not possibly have cultivated this. Yunchen was well aware that even a medicine faculty teacher would need at least one full day to refine a cypress elixir, and he had been away for less than half a day. Chapter 2190, Stop Joking, 2. Also, he would never believe that Yi Qing could really refine elixirs. Maybe Teacher Yi placed an already completed elixir in the tripod. Yunchen muttered to himself. This surmisation might be far-fetched, but it was still far more believable than the fact that Yi Qing could refine elixirs. Yunchen, what are you standing there for? Yi Qing Tang walked in. She had just gone to fetch some water and returned to see Yunchen standing at the door in a daze. Yunchen jumped at the sound of Yi Qing's voice. Teacher Yi. Yi Qing Tang said, did you bring back all the medicinal herbs I require? Yunchen composed himself and replied, I have brought back most of them. But I am missing a few and would need a few days before. Yunchen took out the newly filled space ring and gave it to Yi Qing. Yi Qing Tang scanned the items inside the ring. Although there were a few of the rarer ingredients missing, it didn't matter. She wouldn't need those ingredients for the time being. They were just there as a backup. Taking out a few herbs from the space ring, Yi Qing Tang instructed Yunchen, the cypress elixir is about done. Go and take it out. Taken aback, Yunchen suddenly remembered about the cypress elixir. He opened his mouth to say something but didn't know how to ask the question. In the end, he just went to take out the cypress elixir. After retrieving the cypress elixir, Yunchen realized that the quality of this elixir was even better than he first imagined. Warmth and fragrance swirled around the small pill. The scent was exceptionally refreshing. The cypress elixir might just be a mid-grade elixir, but only alchemists themselves knew just how much the quality of such an elixir could differ. While it was the same type of elixir, but the difference in quality from one pill to the next could be as wide as heaven and earth. A top-grade pill was worth more than 100 normal-grade pills. Yunchen carefully placed the cypress elixir into an exquisite bottle. If Yunchen had doubted whether Yi Qing had refined this elixir, he no longer had any doubts now. He couldn't have possibly produced this. Even the medicine faculty head might not be able to refine a cypress elixir of this level. It should be pointed out that the medicine faculty head was a master-level alchemist. But at the very most, he could only refine mid-grade elixirs to a quality level of 90%. It was nearly impossible to achieve the peak 100% stage. When refining elixirs, the slightest variant to the intensity of the fire, the number of ingredients used as well as the duration of the cultivation, could result in major differences. To achieve the peak 100% perfect quality, apart from that Grand Master Alchemist, no one else would be able to perform such a feat. Teacher Yi, where did you get this cypress elixir? I wonder which Grand Master Alchemist cultivated this? At this moment, Yunchen was already convinced that Yi Qing had definitely not produced this cypress elixir. He believed that Yi Qing had just placed this already completed pill in the tripod out of curiosity. Placing a completed elixir into a tripod for a short period of time would not produce any sort of changes. As an alchemist himself, Yunchen desperately wished to know which Grand Master Alchemist cultivated this cypress elixir. He wondered if Teacher Yi was acquainted with that person. Yi Qing Tang lifted her head and stared at Yunchen with a puzzled look in her eyes. Chapter 2191, Stop Joking, 3. Feeling Yi Qing's gaze, Yunchen suddenly snapped out of his trance. He lowered his eyelids with a hint of awkwardness. Damn, he had been too impulsive. He didn't realize it would embarrass Teacher Yi. Yi Qing Tang continued to look at Yunchen and the sudden changes in his expressions. She had no idea what this kid was thinking and just continued to go about her task. You don't have enough medicinal herbs here. I could only gather what was here and only managed to cultivate one cypress elixir. Yunchen suddenly lifted his eyes and stared at Yi Qing incredulously. At this moment, Yunchen finally realized that the medicinal herbs which had been scattered on the floor had all been gathered up and arranged on the table. Yunchen always had a good idea of just how many herbs he had on hand. With one glance, he could tell that he was missing the exact proportion of ingredients to make a cypress elixir. Yunchen gaped. For a long while, he remained in a speechless daze. Teacher Yi had cultivated this cypress elixir? How was that possible? Yunchen was filled with doubts. But it wouldn't be appropriate for him to voice them out to Yi Qing. And so he just nodded and let it pass. Never mind. If Teacher Yi wanted to keep up this facade, he would not expose him. Your bloodline affects your cultivation of medicines. But you should have no problem preparing the ingredients, right? Yi Qing suddenly asked. Yunchen nodded. Yi Qing took out a few medicinal herbs and passed them to Yunchen. Prepare these. Yunchen accepted the herbs and couldn't help giving a soft sigh. Teacher Yi probably didn't even know how to prepare medicinal herbs. That was why he had found an excuse for him to do it. The missing portions of ingredients for the cypress elixir, he had probably ruined them. He was probably worried about losing face and so placed a completed elixir on the tripod. Nevertheless, even if Teacher Yi wanted to pretend he shouldn't have used a Grand Master-level cypress elixir, Yunchen sighed in resignation and started to prepare the herbs. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang stood by the side observing how Yunchen prepared the herbs. It must be said that although his success rate at refining medicines was poor, Yunchen had invested a lot of time and effort in trying. As a result, he was extremely adept at preparing the medicinal ingredients. He was also very meticulous. Even Yi Qingtang was able to feel it in his actions. Before long, Yunchen had finished prepping all the herbs. He truly had no idea why Yi Qing would suddenly wish to refine elixirs. He just resigned himself to assisting him. Yi Qingtang arranged the prepped ingredients. Yunchen cleared his throat softly. Teacher Yi, is there anything else? If not, may I leave first? Yunchen spoke up tentatively. The words made Yi Qingtang frown. Leave? If you want to be an alchemist, you must stand by and observe when someone else is refining elixirs. It is how you will learn. You are not allowed to go anywhere. Stand there and observe carefully. Yunchen, was Teacher Yi sure about this? Yunchen was only doing this for Teacher Yi's own good. With Yunchen standing here, Teacher Yi wouldn't get a chance to swap in an already completed pill. Yunchen felt exasperated, but since Yi Qing had instructed so, he could not just leave at will. He had no choice but to stand there with a sigh. Yi Qingtang had no idea what Yunchen was thinking. She was fully focused on the ingredients gathered before her. With a practiced hand, she picked up a few from each pile. Yunchen's brow furrowed deeper as he watched. The herbs which Yi Qingtang had picked possessed characteristics which clashed with each other. It would be impossible to refine them together. If these herbs were forcibly refined together, not only would it fail to become an elixir, it might probably end up being a lethal poison. Chapter 2192, Incredible 1. This Teacher Yi. Was he joking? Several times, Yunchen wanted to advise him against his actions but was put off by a warning glance each time. Yunchen was so dismayed that even his usually pale face looked a bit flushed now. He watched as Yi Qing gathered the exact amount of herbs as prescribed, before opening the tripod and placing the ingredients inside. Yunchen, as he didn't have a high success rate at refining elixirs, and because he had more experience trying to refine than the usual student, Yunchen had read quite a number of ancient books to improve his skills. Consequently, he had a rather comprehensive understanding of herbs. Something bad would definitely happen with what Yi Qing was doing. As expected, a muffled sound erupted from the tripod the moment the fire was lit. Soon enough, a stream of smoke spread out from the tripod. Yunchen's face changed. At the side, Yi Qingtang appeared completely nonchalant. Teacher Yi, these herbs, Yunchen was about to warn Yi Qing. Calm suddenly descended over the smoke-covered tripod, and the smoke in the room suddenly emitted a clean fragrance. Yunchen, what about these herbs? Yi Qingtang was focused on the tripod and wasn't paying much attention to Yunchen's words. For a moment there, Yunchen had no idea what to say. Luckily, nothing catastrophic had happened. Time passed by the minute and second. Yi Qing didn't stay beside the tripod but went to gather a few more portions of herbs to prepare for the next batch. Looking at Yi Qing's busy figure and then at the temporarily calm tripod, Yunchen was feeling all anxious inside. As night fell, the fire in the tripod finally subsided. Yi Qingtang saw that the time was about right and opened the tripod. Several pitch-black elixirs were laid out quietly inside. Just going by the color, one could tell they were poisonous pills. Yi Qingtang took them out and examined them. Delight flashed across her eyes. She still had it. Her skills were still well and intact. Yunchen felt rather conflicted as he observed Yi Qingtang's satisfied expression. Before he could react further, Yi Qingtang suddenly turned and presented one of the black pills to Yunchen. Eat it. Yunchen's jaw dropped to the floor. Eat it? Teacher Yi, what did you say? The hairs on the back of Yunchen's neck were all standing on end. I asked you to eat it, Yi Qingtang repeated. Yunchen, when did he offend her? Teacher Yi, this pill, Yunchen tried to resist. But the moment Yunchen opened his mouth to speak, Yi Qingtang took the opportunity to toss the pill inside his mouth and smacked him on the chest. Gulp. Yunchen inadvertently swallowed the pitch-black pill. Yunchen, he was doomed. How is it? Yi Qing looked at Yunchen closely. Yunchen just felt a bitter taste spread across his throat. For a moment there were no other terrible side effects yet. Just as he was quietly relieved, he suddenly felt a surge of heat flowing out of his danton. In just a few breaths' time, Yunchen felt hot all over. His usually pale face was flushed red by his high temperature. Within seconds, Yunchen's internal energy was suppressed by this heat flow. His expression underwent a major shift. My bloodline? Yunchen widened his eyes at Yi Qingtang as anger flashed across his face. Chapter 2193, Incredible, 2. Teacher Yi, what did I ever do to you? Why did you destroy my bloodline? Yunchen was truly enraged. If Yi Qing wanted to mess around, he could play along with him. But how could he force him to take this randomly cultivated elixir? His drifting cloud bloodline was subdued within seconds. Was Teacher Yi trying to kill him? Yi Qing was calm in the face of Yunchen's anger. Your bloodline has been subdued? Yi Qing asked. Yunchen gritted his teeth. Yes. Very good. Yi Qing nodded. Yunchen nearly spat out blood in rage. Come here. These are the ingredients for the cypress elixir. Try and refine one now. Before Yunchen could react, Yi Qing placed the prepped ingredients into Yunchen's hands. Yunchen was already blinded by rage. Would he still be willing to follow this crazy teacher's instructions? Destroying one's bloodline was like crushing one's martial arts future. Teacher Yi. Yunchen. Yi Qing and Yunchen spoke at the same time. The youth shot him a very stern look and the rest of Yunchen's words got stuck in his throat. Go and refine the pill now, Yi Qing insisted. Yunchen took a deep breath as he struggled to contain his anger. Just do as I say. I will naturally restore your bloodline. Yi Qing added. Yunchen narrowed his eyes at Yi Qing. He couldn't understand why Yi Qing was doing this to him. He had never offended him before. But he conjured some weird pill at random and destroyed his bloodline. Just as Yunchen was about to walk off, a bitter amusement filled his heart. Even if his bloodline was present, with his physical condition, he would never be able to continue practicing martial arts. Destroyed or not, it made no difference to him. It was just that Yi Qing's request was just too ridiculous. Teacher Yi, I refuse. Yunchen put in a lot of effort to finally calm himself down. He was not willing to continue playing along with Yi Qing. He turned to leave. Yi Qingtang gave an inward sigh on seeing Yunchen storm off in anger. Never mind, she couldn't blame this kid for not believing her. With a sudden leap, Yi Qingtang landed beside Yunchen. Before he could react, she used her fingers to jab at several pressure points on his chest. Shocked, Yunchen was prepared to retaliate when he felt that his suppressed bloodline had suddenly been restored. Yunchen was dumbstruck. What was going on? Kid, you wasted one of my suppression elixirs. You deserve a scolding. One glance at Yunchen's expression and Yi Qingtang could tell his bloodline had been restored. Yunchen was still in a daze. He tried to circulate his bloodline and realized that everything was back to normal. It was as if having his bloodline suppressed had just been a nightmare. You found it difficult to improve your elixir refining skills because of your drifting cloud bloodline. I cultivated these pills called suppression elixirs, and they can temporarily seal off your bloodline. In this way, you won't be affected by your bloodline. And the way to restore your bloodline is very simple. You just need to activate those pressure points like I did earlier. That would allow the effects of the elixir to be released from your body. Yi Qing patiently explained. Yun Chen was completely stupefied. Suppression elixir? What in the world was that? He had never heard of that before. Yi Qing's so-called suppression elixir sounded completely outrageous. Yun Chen had never even heard of any medicine that could seal off one's bloodline. Chapter 2194, Incredible, 3. But having personally experienced this, Yun Chen knew very well the effects of this elixir. Teacher Yi, how about it? Take another pill and then go and try to refine an elixir? Yi Qing looked at Yun Chen. In the drop of a hat, Yun Chen's expression turned from rage to shock. Previously, Yun Chen would never have believed that Yi Qing knew how to cultivate elixirs. But now, the effects of this pill had shattered Yun Chen's worldview on elixirs. Teacher Yi, do you really know how to refine elixirs? Yun Chen asked. If I didn't, how could I have produced this? Yi Qingtang was amused. Yun Chen quietly swallowed. He found all that had happened very hard to digest. So, you really refined that cypress elixir? Yi Qingtang felt like laughing at Yun Chen's query. She didn't reply immediately but just went to the table and swiftly selected the ingredients for the cypress elixir. She placed them in the tripod and with one hand, ignited a black flame and infused it into the tripod. The cultivation of the herbs progressed rapidly. All this happened right in front of Yun Chen's eyes. Every single one of Yi Qing's movements was imprinted in his mind. He had repeated this process umpteenth times over the month, but when Yi Qing performed it, everything suddenly appeared exceptionally simple. After a short period of time, the fragrance of the cypress elixir emanated from the tripod. Yi Qing took out the cypress elixir and placed it directly in Yun Chen's hands. Not wanting to waste time, she had made use of her black flame to speed up the refinement of this elixir. To have the confidence to do that, Yi Qing must have a certain level of mastery over the refinement of elixirs. As Yun Chen looked at the cypress elixir in his hands, he saw that it was identical to the one before. A gasp burst from his lips. He could hardly believe what he just witnessed. Teacher Yi knew how to cultivate medicine? Furthermore, the quality of this elixir was extraordinary. Convinced now. Yi Qing smiled. Yun Chen nodded in a daze. He was feeling rather surreal. At this moment, Yun Chen remembered all his doubts about Yi Qing, and he felt like slapping himself to death. He had personally experienced the feeling of failing to recognize a formidable person. Teacher Yi, stop standing there in a daze. These suppression elixirs are for you. It's late now and I'm going back to rest. If you still have the energy, practice on your own. Yi Qingtang stretched her limbs. Today's suppression elixirs were just a warm-up for her. There were a whole bunch of elixirs she would need to refine tomorrow. No wonder Yun Chen didn't believe her. Yi Qingtang herself wouldn't believe in something like a suppression elixir if she hadn't seen it 300 years into the future. In addition, a teacher like her was truly not that convincing. After Yi Qingtang finished giving her instructions, she turned and left. Yun Chen stared after Yi Qing's departing profile in a daze. The elixirs in his hand were still warm and he finally snapped out of his trance. He instinctively clenched his fists, as if he was clutching onto his final piece of hope. He was wrong about Teacher Yi. Teacher Yi came to cultivate elixirs purely to resolve his dilemma, to help him find a way to continue refining medicine. But Yun Chen felt very distressed. But he also knew that he couldn't waste Yi Qing's efforts. The fire of determination lit up in Yun Chen's eyes. Without further hesitation, he swallowed one suppression elixir and felt his bloodline subdued. Thereafter, he threw himself into the process of cultivating medicines with a fervor that had been lost for as long as he could remember. Chapter 2195. Can I reject? 1. The next morning, Jing Zhe and the others came to the classroom to await Yi Qing's arrival. But to their surprise, Yi Qing was nowhere to be seen even after they waited for an entire afternoon. Yun Chen also did not show up. Don't tell me that boss is still at the alchemy lab? Why does he need to go there to refine elixirs? Lei Yan was puzzled. Perhaps boss knows that with his current cultivation level, it would be too difficult for him to progress any further, and so he wants to change his occupation? Nangong Lai stroked his chin as he guessed. Their boss appeared to be a few years older than them, but his powers were not that great. In Nangong Lai's opinion, Yi Qing would probably never be able to attain the Paragon level. This kind of power in the second domain was not outstanding at all. When Yi Qing failed to appear after they waited for the whole afternoon, they all went about their own cultivation. After all, they had to show their boss some support and try not to affect his confidence. The few of them believed that Yi Qing would give up after a couple of days. As a result, they didn't mind. Apart from Qin Feng's diligent gardening, the others went about their own cultivation. But 4 to 5 days passed and they still saw no sign of Yi Qing. By then, the group of kids could no longer sit still. They snuck into the medicine faculty and came to Yun Chen's alchemy lab. Just as they were hesitating over who should knock on the door, Yun Chen came out carrying a stack of boxes. He looked puzzled at the sight of the restless teenagers. "Why are you guys here?" They immediately surrounded Yun Chen. "Yun Chen, what have you and boss been doing the past few days? What are you carrying?" Nangong Lai started to ask when his attention was attracted by those boxes in Yun Chen's arms. "Some medicinal herbs," Yun Chen replied. "Don't you have a space ring? Why are you carrying them like this?" Nangong Lai was puzzled. Yun Chen chuckled. "These medicinal herbs are very precious. They would lose their medicinal potency if I put them in the space ring." "Bus asked for these?" Lei Yan asked cautiously. Yun Chen nodded. The group exchanged looks. They thought Yi Qing would stop this nonsense after a few days. But their teacher was still asking for more ingredients. Their teacher was going all out to refine elixirs. Previously, the abilities of Lei Yan and the rest had significantly improved under Yi Qing's guidance. Over the past few days, as they cultivated on their own, they had encountered some problems but didn't dare to disturb Yi Qing. Unable to wait any longer, they had no choice but to come here. "I say, Yunchen, go and persuade boss. It's too late for him to start learning about medicine cultivation now," Nangong Lai urged. Lei Yan also nodded. "That's right. Why does boss insist on doing this? If he is able to groom me to greater heights, he can rely on the backing of my Lei Tang family in the future. There's no need for him to put in so much effort in this. Rather than wasting his time, he should teach me a few more moves." A waste of time. Dumbfounded, Yun Chen stared at Lei Yan and the rest, the corners of his lips twitching. A waste of time? They were the ones who were wasting their time. Lei Yan and the rest were so wily. They didn't dare to approach Yi Qing themselves, and so they were trying to make him go and persuade Yi Qing instead. "Yun Chen, even if you don't care about us, you need to think for your own good. With boss using your alchemy lab now, when else will you get the time to cultivate elixirs?" Nangong Lai continued his urging. Chapter 2196, Can I Reject? 2. Also, the medicine faculty's monthly assessment is coming up, right? If you don't hurry and... Nangong Lai didn't complete his sentence. His meaning was clear. Yun Chen had a peculiar expression on his face. "It is my honor that Teacher Yi is willing to use my alchemy lab." Nangong Lai and Lei Yan were completely stunned by Yun Chen's words. Nangong Lai, "Damn, this guy is even better at bootlicking than me?" Lei Yan, "Damn, this Yun Chen is even better at bootlicking than Nangong Lai?" Observing the reactions of the group, Yun Chen was trying to find a way to explain the situation when the lab doors were suddenly thrown open. Standing in the doorway, Yi Qing immediately noticed Yun Chen and his armful of boxes. "Yun Chen, hurry up and bring the herbs inside." She needed them urgently. Yun Chen snapped out of his trance. There was no time to explain now. He just ran into the lab with his boxes of precious medicinal ingredients. After watching Yun Chen enter the alchemy lab, Yi Qing Tang finally noticed the kids standing outside the door. "Why are you all here?" Yi Qing Tang asked. "Little senior sister misses you, so we came with her to visit you." Nangong Lai immediately shoved Mu Ziying to the front. "Mu Ziying, was it too late for her to kill them now?" Yi Qing Tang didn't think too much and just said, "It's perfect timing that you guys are here. I've just completed refining your elixirs. Come in." With that, Yi Qing turned back into the alchemy lab. Different expressions flashed across the faces of the group when they heard that Yi Qing had refined some elixirs for them. Jing Zhe and Mu Ziying looked very grateful. They believed that Boss was indeed super nice to them, still thinking about them even during this period. On the contrary, Nangong Lai and Lei Yen appeared very conflicted. Boss refined elixirs for us? Nangong Lai glanced at Lei Yen. Lei Yen swallowed hard. If we take them, we won't die, right? Meanwhile, Jing Zhe and Mu Xing had already entered the lab. Nangong Lai frowned at the unexpected turn of events. He clutched his stomach. My stomach suddenly hurts. I need to go to the toilet. He turned to flee. But before he could take more than a couple of steps, Lei Yen wrapped one arm around his neck and dragged him into the alchemy lab. Brother, we already made a pact that we would go through thick and thin together. You cannot just leave me behind. Lei Yen took a deep breath. Lei Yen might be a bit more stupid compared to Nangong Lai's slyness, but he was also a bit more loyal. He believed that Yi Qing's elixirs were probably no different from poison. But looking at how Yi Qing had helped them, Lei Yen was determined to support her at all costs. It was just taking poison. He had quite a number of elixirs in his space ring. At the very most, he could just go back and eat some to neutralize the effects. Stop. Brother, let's talk things through. Nangong Lai struggled but was still dragged into the lab by Lei Yen. Flames swirled within the tripod inside the alchemy lab. The entire lab was filled with the intense smell of herbs. It was slightly bitter but not at all pungent. The interior of the lab was not as chaotic as Lei Yen and the rest expected. It was much cleaner than when they first saw it. All the medicinal herbs had been sorted out into different containers. On the table, there were also batches of prepped ingredients and several white porcelain bottles. Chapter 2197. Can I reject? 3. Yi Qingtang had Yun Chen put away the newly acquired herbs. She then took up the bottles of elixirs on the table and handed them to Mu Xing and the others. This is the Phoenix Elixir and is best for nourishing mental energy. Xing, since you are going to be a puppet master, you need to strengthen your mental energy to become even stronger than the usual self. Yi Qing pointed at the white porcelain bottle in Mu Xing's hands. Mu Xing's eyes lit up. Her little face was filled with excitement, and she looked at Yi Qing with eyes filled with gratitude. After learning the spirit control line under Yi Qingtang, Mu Xing could already control her puppet to do whatever she wanted. But after some time, she would feel fatigued. It was probably due to her lack of mental energy. Then Yi Qing turned toward Jing Zhe. Your bloodline was just awakened, so I prepared this dark Yin elixir for you. This pill can nourish bloodlines, and it is exactly what you need now. Jing Zhe clutched the bottle of dark Yin elixir tightly, looking very touched. Bowing respectfully, he thanked Yi Qing with a trembling voice. Thank you, boss. After his bloodline was awakened, Jing Zhe's bleak future was finally looking up. However, perhaps his bloodline had been dormant for too long. Jing Zhe was unable to exercise full control of it. He was frequently unable to perform as he wanted, and this slowed down his progress. Mu Xing and Jing Zhe were thrilled after receiving their elixirs. But Nangong Lai and Lei Yen were a different story. Lei Yen and Nangong Lai were both from great family clans and so had more access to elixirs than students from common families like Jing Zhe. Nourish bloodline? Is boss having delusions? Lei Yen felt that Yi Qing must have gone mad. They knew of elixirs which could nourish mental energy, but nourish bloodlines? Did boss come up with this innovation on his own? Bloodlines were very miraculous and delicate things. According to what Lei Yen knew about bloodlines, it was impossible to influence them in any way with elixirs. But Yi Qing was in all seriousness pointing at that dark Yin elixir and saying that it could nourish bloodlines. Phoenix Elixir, Dark Yin Elixir. Little Lei, have you heard of them before? Nangong Lai searched his mind but couldn't find any medicines with such names. Damn you, call me Little Lei again and I will kill you. Lei Yen looked very fierce, but on seeing Yi Qingtang heading over their way, his anger immediately subsided. I say, don't tell me boss really managed to produce elixirs just like that? He even gave them names? Heaven knows what the hell he just gave us. Lei Yen felt rather panicked. In the blink of an eye, Yi Qingtang had arrived in front of Lei Yen and Nangong Lai. Lei Yen didn't receive proper instruction from a young age, and so his foundation was much weaker than his peers. Yi Qing prepared the purple gold elixir for him to stabilize his foundation. For Nangong Lai, he was restless and impulsive, which prevented him from focusing on his cultivation. As a result, Yi Qing prepared the sky elixir for him. Yi Qing had refined these elixirs in this alchemy lab over the past few days. Since she wanted them to participate in the Inter-Academy competition, it was only natural that she prepared them the best she could. Lei Yan and Nangong Lai had never heard of the purple gold elixir or the sky elixir. They felt that Yi Qing must have gone crazy from all that refining. Chapter 2198, Identity 1. They lowered their heads, looking at the elixirs. Lei Yan gave a surreptitious wink as he wanted Yunchen to help say something. However, Yunchen looked at Yi Qing in admiration, as though he idolized her. Darn. Another one who had gone crazy. Consume the elixir now and circulate your energy here for a day. Yi Qingtang wasn't sure whether the elixirs were suitable for them or not. She just refined the elixirs according to their individual needs, and she needed to observe them after their consumption. If the elixirs worked for them, she could continue making the same ones for them in the future. Without any hesitation, Jing Zhe and Mu Xing consumed the elixirs and sat cross-legged. On the other hand, Nangong Lai and Lei Yan's turn looked like they were about to cry. They poured the elixir onto their palms and had a miserable look on their face. Nangong Lai suddenly had an idea. He tried to reuse an old antic by pretending he had a stomach ache. "Boss, my stomach is aching. I probably ate something bad. I'll keep this and consume it later, Lei Yan." "Damn it, you're using the same tactic?" Lei Yan showed his contempt while making weird sounds, holding his stomach and pretending to look ill. "Boss, my stomach hurts too. I think that I might have eaten something bad too." Nangong Lai, there wasn't anyone more shameless than him. Yi Qingtang looked at the two brats with raised brows. "You ate something bad? Open your mouth, let me see if you've been poisoned." They opened their mouths, putting on awful expressions. Right when they opened their mouths, Yi Qingtang lifted the hands they used to hold the elixirs. Pow pow! They were slapped by their own hands. And the elixirs also went down their throats. "Does it still hurt?" Yi Qing asked. They shook their heads simultaneously. "Sit cross-legged and circulate your energy now," Yi Qing shouted. With a shudder, they immediately sat on the floor. Jing Zhe and Mu Xing had already started circulating their energy. They closed their eyes, isolating themselves from the rest of the world. Since Nangong Lai and Lei Yan had consumed the elixirs and couldn't throw them up, they could only start cultivating as well. As Yi Qingtang watched them, four beams of silver light suddenly flew out of her fingertips, connecting to the back of their necks. Yunchen was stunned. Spirit line. Yunchen had a weak body. When he was a newborn, he had been determined to not be able to live past 10 years old. To keep him alive, his family searched for the best doctors all over the world, but they were still not able to change his fate. It was only at last his grandfather used his connections to find a sage of medicine to treat him. Yunchen was only 8 at that time. He saw the sage release silver lights into his pressure points all over his body. The spirit line was made from spirit energy. It could detect every little detail in the human body. They needed to compress the spiritual energy until it was as thin as a spider web and have perfect precision. If not, it would cause dire consequences for both parties. The sage used the spirit lines to save him, such that he could survive up until now. Even now Yunchen remembered that his grandfather once said there were not more than 5 people who could control the spirit line, and all of them were legendary figures. However, how come Teacher Yi also knew how to use the spirit line? Yunchen's brows furrowed while he looked at Yi Qing, and he couldn't help but feel suspicious. Who exactly was he? Chapter 2199, Identity 2. Yunchen had thought that Yi Qing was just a teacher with a profound understanding of martial arts at first. But the more interactions he had with the mysterious teacher, the more he was suspicious of his identity. After all, he looked like he was in his 20s at most and didn't look particularly outstanding, but none of the students in the Netherworld Academy could compare to him. Teacher Yi could even produce an elixir purer than the one the president of the medicine faculty could produce. He could also control the spirit lines and knew so much about the 4 of them. There was no way the teacher in front of him was a mere 20-year-old. Martial arts wasn't that difficult to understand, but no matter how evil someone was, It wasn't possible to produce such a pure elixir in such a short time. It wasn't possible even if he had started when he was born. As for the spirit lines, he had heard Sage mention before that one needed to be proficient in medical knowledge and practice for 100 years at least before they could master it. And even so, they had to be extremely careful. However, Yunchen looked at Yi Qing, who was looking at the four people relaxedly, and his lips started twitching. Could it be Teacher Yi was a master physician who had already lived for many years? As well as an alchemist grand master? It was the only reason he could come up with to explain all of this. If it was true, Teacher Yi's age was way above 20. He could be over 100. His gaze towards him became respectful. Yi Qingtang, who was in truth only 16 years old, had no idea about the change in Yunchen. She had been forced to study alchemy and medicine in her past life, which had given her an air of mystery now. But she was unaware of all this. Her attention was focused on her students. Among the four of them, Mu Ziying's performance made her the most excited. Perhaps it was because she was the youngest, but she could feel the Phoenix elixir having the most obvious and fastest effect on her. Through the spirit lines, Yi Qingtang could feel her mental energy rising rapidly. She wasn't sure if it was just an illusion, but the eyes of the wooden doll in her embrace seemed to shine as Mu Ziying's mental energy increased, as though it was coming to life. The second was Nangong Lai. His mind was in such a hurry that he could calm down enough to train, but the sky elixir steadied his heart. He had never immersed himself in his training as much as he did today before. The once lazy him was giving his best shot now, and the improvement was startling. As for Jing Zhe and Lei Yan, their progress was slightly slower. But this was all within her expectations. It was extremely difficult to nourish bloodlines, and even after 300 years, there were only a few elixirs that affected it. As for bone structure, there was no rushing it, only nourishing it day by day and growing stronger slowly. Yi Qingtang recorded their progress one by one. After confirming that there were no concerns, she let go of her spirit line. She had been busy with making the elixirs the past few days, and as a result, her cultivation had slipped. After handing the four over to Yunchen, she went back to her room to cultivate. It was too much of a waste of time to teach these children like this. She had to think of a perfect method to improve herself and the children at the same time. Chapter 2200, Identity 3. After a week of cultivation, Lei Yan and the others slowed down, but their progress shocked everyone. Lei Yan had been holding the rescue elixir in his hand all along but had not used it at all. He felt happiness that he had never felt before after cultivating this time. It was as though the qi and blood that had been stuck in his body were now flowing free. The more he did this, the better he felt. This was something he had never felt before. Boss. After recovering from his initial shock, Lei Yan called for Yi Qing. But he didn't see him as his gaze swept across the alchemy lab. Nangong Lai and the rest had come to their senses as well. Their expressions were similarly awed and surprised. Even Mu Ziying and Jing Zhe, who had already trusted Yi Qingtang, were surprised at how much effect the elixirs that Yi Qing made had on them. Yunchen, this elixir, was really made by Boss herself? Nangong Lai's eyes were complicated as he looked at Yunchen. He was from the Shi family after all and had seen and taken many elixirs in his life. He had never come across an elixir as good as this one before. It seemed that Yunchen had already expected their reactions. Handling the herbs by his side, he said, "I was with Boss as he was refining the elixirs. I was also the one who accompanied him when he went to find the herbs for the elixirs." He had subconsciously started calling him Boss as well. Nangong Lai understood Yunchen and knew that he wouldn't lie about something like this. The students were hit by a wave of emotion. How exciting was this piece of information? Yunchen, you're from the medical faculty and know a lot about elixirs. How are the elixirs made by Boss? Lei Yan asked curiously. Yunchen thought for a moment before saying, "I've never heard of those elixirs before, so I can't gauge them at all, but he made the cypress elixir as a warm-up before, and if I were to go by that." He paused before continuing, "I don't think anyone else in the Netherworld Academy could do better than him." His evaluation made them all gasp. Even though the Netherworld Academy didn't have many Grand Master alchemists, there were still many skilled alchemists there, but with that Yunchen said, Didn't it mean that Yi Qing's skills were better than all of them? My God, I've really picked up something precious this time. This won't do. How could I have suspected the elixir that boss made? I have to beg him for forgiveness. Lei Yan wanted to slap himself as he thought the doubt he had previously. The other hadn't expected the teacher that they were stuck with as a last resort would give them such a pleasant surprise. Not only in martial arts, but his way with the sword and elixirs all shook them to the core. Where is boss from? How does he know so much? Nangong Lai was taken aback as well. Regardless of where he is from, as long as he is willing to guide me, I will not be ungrateful. Chapter 2201. Accusations, 1. Yun Chen's words made them nod. Ungrateful? Don't joke around. They were on the verge of offering themselves to him. Just thinking about how lowly they were in the Netherworld Academy before and how Yi Qing had tried the best for every single one of them was enough to move them thoroughly. Moreover, their dedicated teacher was not only well-versed in martial arts but was also an extremely capable alchemist. Where else could they find someone like this? The teenagers who had been ready to give up and finally been offered a ray of light. The same teacher who had suddenly appeared in front of them was like a lamp, illuminating their dark future. Yi Qingtang had no idea about all the thoughts that were running through Lei Yan and her other students' minds. She had wasted a few days making the elixirs and was hard at work cultivating herself. She had planned to shut herself in for a few days before returning to the classroom, but some people weren't allowing her to do so. Early next morning, she was called to the vice president's room. The kind-looking vice president was seated behind his table. There were a few teachers in the room apart from him. In addition to Teacher Luo, who had brought Yi Qingtang to the Netherworld Academy, Teacher Di Nua from the martial arts faculty, as well as another person wearing the clothes of the medicine faculty. As soon as Yi Qingtang saw their postures, she knew that nothing good would come out of this. Vice President. Yi Qingtang remained calm and greeted the vice president politely. The vice president looked at the slim young youth in front of him. Frowning, he sighed with a helpless expression and said, "Teacher Yi, this is Teacher Di Nua from the martial arts faculty, whom you've met before. This is Teacher Luo from the medicine faculty." She nodded slightly to these two people, but they stared at her frostily. "I called you here today as these two teachers told me that you were fooling around in their faculties. Do you have anything to say about that?" The vice president said slowly. "Fooling around? I'm not sure why they would say that," she said. Teacher Di Nua's eyes narrowed and he said, "Teacher Yi, what a good memory you have. Have you already forgotten how you urged your students to use violence in my faculty?" Yi Qingtang looked at him lightly. She hadn't expected him to tattle to the vice president about what happened a few days ago. "Teacher Di Nua, let me remind you that what happened was in the martial arts arena. Even though I've just entered the academy, I know that the martial arts arena is where the students can exchange blows with each other. Is this not the case? Exchange blows with each other? Even if that was the case, there's a limit. What did you teach Jing Zhe to the point that it damaged Zhang Qiqi's bloodline?" Teacher Di Nua said coldly. Yi Qingtang was taken aback. Zhang Qiqi's bloodline had been damaged? No wonder he was making a fuss now. There were no problems with students exchanging blows with each other, but Jing Zhe's blow in the arena was wrong. It was no small matter if he had damaged someone's bloodline. Bloodlines were extremely important. Once they were damaged, it was difficult to recuperate even with modern medical skills. Chapter 2202, Accusations, 2. Yi Qingtang deliberated for a moment before realizing that Jing Zhe's bloodline had probably awakened at that moment and harmed Zhang Qiqi in return. This was going to be a little troublesome. Zhang Qiqi was from the Shi family. Their family wouldn't let Jing Zhe go easily if they found out that he had damaged Zhang Qiqi's bloodline. Given that Jing Zhe was from an ordinary family, there was no way he would be able to withstand the family clan's attack. "Do you have anything else to say?" Di Nua scoffed coldly. He had planned to find a way to kick Yi Qing out of the Netherworld Academy, but now that Zhang Qiqi's bloodline was damaged, he was going to take this chance to kick her out immediately. Even though Jing Zhe was powerless initially, he wasn't a bad person. But he became cruel and vicious after studying under you. You don't have any morals and shouldn't be allowed in our academy. Yi Qingtang knew exactly what Di Nua's intentions were. She didn't plan on staying in the Netherworld Academy for long anyway and was only here to use the wind calming pearl. She couldn't leave now. In addition, she didn't want to leave Jing Zhe with so much trouble ahead. Since Jing Zhe is my student and he damaged Zhang Kikia's bloodline, I will take responsibility for it. You dare take responsibility for it? There's no way to heal a damaged bloodline, so how are you going to fix it? Di Nuo snapped with a cold laugh. She didn't speak up immediately and looked at Teacher Luo who was standing at the side. I will take responsibility, but before that, I want to know what Teacher Luo meant about me making a mess in the medicine faculty. Di Nuo scoffed coldly. Teacher Luo frowned slightly and looked at Yi Qingtang with a displeased expression. Teacher Yi, you wanted to borrow our alchemy lab a few days ago, but when you were rejected, you went to Yun Chen's alchemy lab instead. Isn't that right? That's right, Yi Qingtang said truthfully. Teacher Luo nodded slightly. Seeing her admission, Teacher Luo turned to the vice president and said, Vice President, we don't care if the students want to let others use the alchemy lab, but there's something we can't overlook. With that, Teacher Luo's eyes moved to Yi Qingtang and his gaze turned sharp. Yun Chen is a student of the medicine faculty, but it's well known how difficult it is for him to improve due to his bloodline. But he suddenly brought over a cypress elixir yesterday and said that he had made it himself. It was tested by the teachers in the medicine faculty and we can confirm that it was something that couldn't have been refined by him. Teacher Yi, the medicine faculty has certain rules. To protect Yun Chen, you even gave him someone else's cypress elixir to pass off as his own. We cannot let this pass. Yi Qingtang was angry yet pleased to hear his words. How do you know that it wasn't refined by him? Yun Chen has been in the medicine faculty for many years now and we are clear on the quality of the elixirs that he can refine. Just last month, he couldn't even refine the bare minimum quality of elixirs. May I ask you how he could possibly improve so greatly in just a month? Teacher Luo asked coldly. Chapter 2203, Tattle, 3. Even though the elixir that Yun Chen had brought the day before wasn't perfect, it had already far exceeded his standards and was on par with that of a skilled alchemist. But he could barely refine mid-tier elixirs just a while ago. It was impossible for someone to improve so much in half a year, let alone half a month. Even though he wasn't good at refining elixirs previously, there was no way he would have done something so shameless. How would he have dared to do something so bold if not under someone else's guidance? Teacher Luo was certain that Yi Qing was the one messing around behind him. With his personality, there was no way that Yun Chen would be so bold. Everything had started when Yi Qing came into the Netherworld Academy. The vice president felt a headache coming on as he listened to the accusations about Yi Qing. He had let her into the Netherworld Academy because he appreciated the youth's understanding of martial arts but had never expected so many things to happen in just half a month after he had arrived. Yi Qing, how are you going to explain this? The vice president's expression was complicated. He knew that the lad wasn't a bad person, but there was no way all of this was a coincidence. As Yi Qingtang looked at the determined Teacher Luo, she only said, Teacher Luo, are you certain that the elixir wasn't from Yun Chen? Of course, he said. Yi Qingtang turned to look at the vice president. That's easy to resolve. We have differing opinions since the medicine faculty doesn't believe that it was made by Yun Chen while I saw him refine it with my own 2 eyes. We can just let him refine another one in front of a few teachers from the medicine faculty. The truth will come to light then. That may sound easy, but Yun Chen's skill level is really low. What if he keeps dragging for time and saying that he can't succeed? Teacher Luo said. I guarantee that he won't fail again. Her words surprised Teacher Luo. The vice president frowned slightly and said, Well, leave this matter to the medicine faculty to settle then. They will make a judgment after Yun Chen refines the elixir. If someone really made him pass off something fake as his own, I will make sure to punish him severely. Now that the vice president had spoken, Teacher Luo couldn't say anything else. He just thought that Yi Qing was crazy to suggest such a method of test. They all knew Yun Chen's standards. This so-called teacher was just asking to be humiliated. I will begin preparations immediately. Teacher Luo shook out his sleeves and after gazing at Yi Qing, walked off. He was going to make sure the impudent youth was left with nothing to say. After Teacher Luo left, All that was left was to handle Teacher Di Nua. Teacher Yi, how are you going to settle the matter of Zhang Qiqiu? He said with a cold laugh as he crossed his hands over his chest. Without saying anything more, Yi Qing took out an elixir. Teacher Di Nua, this elixir can heal the bloodline. Give it to Zhang Qiqiu and treat it as Jing Ze's repayment. With that, she stuffed the elixir into Di Nua's hands. Di Nua was stunned. Heal the bloodline? Teacher Yi, what joke is this? What elixir can heal the bloodline? The vice president and Teacher Luo never would have imagined that he would use an elixir to solve this issue. This had to be a joke. Chapter 2204, Accusations 4. I will be in the Netherworld Academy, so you can direct any questions to me. If Zhang Qiqiu comes, you can hand me over to them. I'm saying this because I'm confident in myself, Yi Qing said steadily. As she had prepared the dark Yin for Jing Ze but hadn't expected it to be used here. Di Nua hadn't expected Yi Qing to be this bold and his expression was ugly. Since he had already said all this, he would have to pay with his life if anything went wrong. The vice president's gaze turned complicated. Yi Qing, what elixir is this? The dark Yin elixir, she said. The vice president frowned. He had never heard of this elixir before. Since I'll still be here, if the elixir doesn't work, I'll let go of all my skill and Zhang Qiqiu's sure family can do whatever they want with me. How about that? She said without hesitation. Di Nua frowned, not believing what Yi Qing was saying. Di Nua, give the dark Yin elixir to Zhang Qiqiu, the vice president said suddenly. Di Nua was stunned. Vice president, don't listen to his words. He is just trying to buy time so that he can take this opportunity too. The vice president raised one hand to interrupt him before he could finish and told Yi Qing, you will stay with me for the next few days. That would allow him to watch the youth for the time being. Di Nua gritted his teeth but quickly relaxed. How was it possible for anyone to heal the bloodline? Yi Qing was doomed even if he used the elixir. Without saying another word, Di Nua took the elixir and walked off. Yi Qingtang felt relaxed seeing that the matter had been settled for now. She already knew what the outcome would be. Nevertheless, Vice President, I have no issues with staying here but please send someone to look after my students, she said. The Vice President nodded and said, don't worry, no harm will come to you if you have done nothing wrong. I will arrange for them to come here so that you can teach them over the next few days. The Vice President instinctively liked Yi Qing. He wouldn't have chosen him as a Netherworld Academy teacher otherwise. But the words of the two other teachers had made him doubt him slightly. He wanted to keep him here for two reasons. One was to ensure there was justice and two was to take this opportunity to see how the youth taught his students. Yi Qingtang breathed a sigh of relief when she heard his words. The vice president sent someone to inform Lei Yan and the other students of their current situation. They had just witnessed Yunshan being called away and were extremely taken aback. What was going on? That? We're going over to the vice president's place from today? Lei Yan scratched his head with a complicated expression on his face. Since it's the vice president, there must be a reason for it. But we should still send Qin Feng's medication over, Jing Ze said kindly. Yunshan had handed them a bottle of elixir before they left the day before and told them that Yi Qing had left it behind for Qin Feng. All right, well go give the medication to Qin Feng. When Yunshan is back, well tell him the news and head over to find boss in the afternoon, Lei Yan agreed with a nod. They didn't think much about it and merely treated it as a change in the place they would be studying at. Soon after, they headed to the front of the academy, ready to hand the elixir over to Qin Feng. Chapter 2205, Heaven Fire Elixir, 1. In the bamboo grove outside the classroom, Qin Feng was kneeling in front of the flower gardens with no expression. Yi Qing had asked him to plant a few seeds previously and some of them had already sprouted. The little shoots looked extremely green against the soil. While he didn't know the reason, he had felt uncomfortable when Yi Qing had asked him to plant the flowers. But as they slowly grew and the little shoots started breaking through the soil, his tumultuous feelings vanished slowly as well. He began to take care of them meticulously every day and wanted to see what beautiful flowers the seeds he had planted would grow into. I didn't believe them when they told me, but it seems like you've really been planting flowers, Qin Feng. A familiar voice floated from behind him. Qin Feng raised his brows slightly. He turned and saw Qin Xian with another 2 boys standing behind him. Turning back quickly, he patted the soil off his hands and got ready to leave. "Brother Qin Feng, don't hurry off." Qin Xian stepped forwards and blocked his path. "Let go," Qin Feng said coldly. Qin Xian smiled. "But is Brother Qin Feng embarrassed? You should be. The Qin family's unique talent is hated by all the teachers, and even the new teacher is asking you to just plant flowers. But that's right, even if the new teacher gives you some advice, it's useless. No matter how hard you try, your power will only regress. You should be doing tasks that suit you," Qin Xian said as he looked at the shoots that had just sprouted. Although Qin Xian's tone was modest, every word cut like a knife into Qin Feng's heart. Qin Xian looked at Qin Feng, wanting to see his angry expression. He used to gaze up at the talented Qin Feng, and now that he was under his feet, it felt great. He wanted to see Qin Feng fall into the soil and never get up again. Qin Xian wanted to be the only talent in the Qin family. But Qin Xian sensed something strange this time. Even though there was annoyance in Qin Feng's eyes, it wasn't the repressed anger from the other day. "Hey, what are you doing?" Just as Qin Xian was starting to get confused, Lei Yan and the others who had come to deliver the pills saw them blocking Qin Feng and rushed up quickly to his side. In the blink of an eye, Lei Yan, Nangong Lai and the rest were standing in front of Qin Feng, distancing him from Qin Xian. Qin Xian was surprised by the sudden appearance of Nangong Lai. Seeing them rush up to protect him, Qin Feng was also a little stunned. "Damn! Qin Xian!" Lei Yan looked carefully and realized that the person standing in front of him was Qin Xian. He felt slightly bad. Qin Xian was in the holy venerate ninth heaven and was 1 step away from the divine Lord realm. He had a bad feeling about this. Lei Yan was usually loud but toned down when he saw elite students like Qin Xian. "Qin Feng, these are your friends?" Qin Xian's eyes swept across them and his lips curled into a sarcastic smile. "Birds of a feather really flock together." Qin Feng's expression was dark. Chapter 2206, Heaven Fire Elixir, 2. Nangong Lai also frowned. Qin Xian was clearly belittling them. "Don't worry, I only came here to chat with Brother Feng," Qin Xian said in a condescending manner. He had absolutely zero regard for Lei Yan and the rest. Nangong Lai glanced at Qin Xian and chose to ignore him. Instead, he turned toward Qin Feng. "Qin Feng, if you are done for the day, boss wanted us to deliver this elixir to you." Nangong Lai was no fool. The gulf between their powers and Qin Xian's was very wide. If they came to blows, they would be the ones to lose. So he just chose to ignore him. Qin Feng looked dubiously at Nangong Lai. Yi Qing had not bothered about him over the past few days, and he had been left alone in the garden. Why did he suddenly send someone to deliver elixirs to him? "Qin Feng, your teacher is pretty good to you, especially preparing elixirs for you. But don't you want to tell him that elixirs are completely ineffective on you? Ask him to save it and not waste those elixirs." Qin Xian smiled. Ignore him, ignore him." Nangong Lai quietly chanted in his heart, pretending not to hear the ridicule in Qin Xian's words. He grinned as he handed the bottle of elixir to Qin Feng. Qin Xian saw that Nangong Lai and the rest were purposely ignoring his existence. Luckily, he felt that he had enough of mocking Qin Feng for today, and so left with the other 2 teenagers in tow. Qin Feng looked at the elixir. "What kind of elixir is this?" Nangong Lai shook his head. "Boss didn't say. He just asked us to hand them to you. Don't worry. Any elixir given by boss will definitely be suitable for you." Qin Feng, why did Nangong Lai sound so optimistic? Qin Feng didn't care either way. He opened the bottle to look at the elixir inside. But the moment he opened the bottle, a wonderful fragrance permeated the air. The fragrance was very calming, as if it could soothe all of one's energy and feelings. Qin Feng was astonished at that fragrance. This scent, he found it rather familiar. Qin Xian, who had been prepared to leave, suddenly halted when he detected that fragrance. "Qin Xian, what's the matter?" one of the teenagers beside him asked. Qin Xian frowned slightly, subtly sensing that fragrance. Heaven Fire Elixir? Qin Xian had experienced this scent before. It was when Qin Xian and the rest were still children. The previous clan master of the Qin family was tormented by mental demons during his cultivation and nearly suffered from qi deviation. One of the elders at that time took out a pill called the Heaven Fire Elixir and had the clan master consume it. Only then were his mental demons subdued. The Heaven Fire Elixir was very rare. The one in the Qin family's possession, it was only because Qin Zhuo had chanced upon it. Since Qin Zhuo had gone missing, that Heaven Fire Elixir had become one of the most valuable heirlooms of the Qin family. Qin Xian had only seen it once. Thereafter, although he heard many legends regarding this Heaven Fire Elixir, he had never seen it again. Even within the Netherworld Academy's treasure pavilion, he did not see such an elixir. The Qin family's bloodline was prone to mental demons. This was why elixirs that could resolve mental demons, like the Heaven Fire Elixir, were exceptionally important to the Qin family. Qin Xian had tried his best to get another one of those elixirs, but his efforts had been in vain. Smelling that familiar fragrance again, Qin Xian couldn't help being stunned. Chapter 2207, Heaven Fire Elixir, 3. Impossible. How did that teacher Yi get his hands on a Heaven Fire Elixir? Qin Xian frowned suspiciously, but his eyes gleamed when he turned to see the elixir which Qin Feng had already poured onto his palm. That pill was a transparent dark red on the outside with a pitch-black inner core. Qin Xian was completely stunned by that one look. It was really the Heaven Fire Elixir. What kind of joke was this? Qin Xian had personally seen a Heaven Fire Elixir. He knew how rare it was and only a Grand Master Alchemist could refine this. And the recipe for this had already been lost. He thought that the new teacher Yi had just randomly coughed up some elixir for Qin Feng. He never dreamed that he would give Qin Feng the Heaven Fire Elixir, something which Qin Xian himself had long desired. A harsh glint flashed across Qin Xian's eyes. He reached out to snatch the Heaven Fire Elixir from Qin Feng. Qin Feng was still in shock and didn't realize that Qin Xian had made a move. Lei Yan and the rest didn't know what this elixir was but noticed Qin Xian's movement. However, their powers were far inferior to Qin Xian's. They were unable to stop him. Just as Qin Xian was about to reach that Heaven Fire Elixir, a small figure scurried up Qin Feng's hand. By the time Qin Feng snapped out of his trance, he saw that his elixir had disappeared while Qin Xian was already right in front of him. Beside him, Qin Xian was stunned on seeing that someone else had snatched the Heaven Fire Elixir in front of his eyes. He then noticed a lifelike puppet had appeared out of nowhere and was now standing on a tree branch. The puppet was holding that Heaven Fire Elixir. Wasn't that the same puppet which Mu Xing was hugging just now? Did she manage to control that puppet to cut in front of him? Qin Xian, what are you trying to do? Nangong Lai reprimanded after regaining his composure. Damn, he was openly trying to rob Qin Feng. Luckily little senior sister reacted fast enough. Qin Xian narrowed his eyes. Hand over the Heaven Fire Elixir. He did not care about anything else. But this Heaven Fire Elixir was very important to him. Heaven Fire Elixir? Qin Feng had only suspected it while the rest had no idea what that elixir was. But everyone was dumbstruck after Qin Xian spoke. Damn, that's the Heaven Fire Elixir? Lei Yan's jaw nearly crashed to the floor. That was a true blue Grand Master level elixir. And not every Grand Master Alchemist could refine it. Boss was so awesome. He could refine something so otherworldly? The teenagers were all shocked, but they also realized just how dire the current situation was. Qin Xian clearly wanted to snatch that elixir for himself. Qin Xian, this elixir belongs to Qin Feng. What's it got to do with you? Nangong Lai sneered. Qin Xian narrowed his eyes before smiling. Qin Feng is useless now. It is a waste for him to have the Heaven Fire Elixir. He is not worthy of such a precious elixir. What a joke. Our boss refined this pill so he can give it to whoever he wants. This doesn't belong to your Qin family. Who the hell do you think you are? Lei Yan felt rather confident by the fact that they had more people on their side. Qin Xian's face darkened. Lei Yan was quietly startled. Qin Xian shot his two companions a look. In the very next moment, the three of them attacked in unison. So you're really going to attack us for it? Lei Yan wailed. Chapter 2208, Invitation, 1. Qin Feng shot forward first, directly confronting Qin Xian. Lei Yan, Nangong Lai and Jing Zhe also charged forward. The bunch of teenagers got into a messy brawl. Little senior sister, leave first. Qin Xian was the most powerful while Qin Feng was one level below him. It was very difficult for Qin Feng to engage him, and he was soon on the losing end after just a few moves. The other two youths were also quite powerful. Even though they were outnumbered by the trio of Nangong Lai and his gang, it was an even match. But it would no longer be an even match the moment Qin Xian intervened. The group soon realized things were not looking good for them. Qin Feng was sent flying off with a single smack by Qin Xian. Just as Qin Xian wanted to turn around to pursue Mu Ziying, he realized that she had already disappeared with that puppet of hers. Qin Xian, you got guts. You dare to attack us on campus. Aren't you afraid that the teachers will hear of this and send you to the discipline hall? Nangong Lai glared at Qin Xian viciously as he reprimanded. Qin Xian's face stiffened on hearing the words, discipline hall. He immediately had a change of heart and smirked. Qin Feng, just you wait and see. He then left with his companions. Lei Yan and the others were relieved. Their powers were considered the weakest in the Netherworld Academy. Meanwhile, Qin Xian's two companions were quite powerful. Even in a 3-against-2 scenario, they were not at a disadvantage at all. Damn, those scoundrels were really vicious. I must settle this score with them one day. Lei Yan held his bruised eye, gritting his teeth in pain. One of Nangong Lai's cheeks had swelled up, and he looked very pathetic. Jing Zhe fared the best, but he also had a gash at the corner of his eye. Qin Feng looked at those teenagers. You guys didn't need to. Brother, what kind of nonsense are you spouting? We are all students under boss. We are a family. Nangong Lai grinned. Qin Feng kept silent, but his eyes gleamed pleasantly. Sometimes, the friendship between youths could be very miraculous. They were at that age where one was full of life and vigor, without much inclination toward lies and deception. You guys better think about what you are going to say to boss tomorrow, Jing Zhe muttered in a low voice. The teenagers exchanged looks, their faces all bruised up. For the moment, Yi Qingtang was at the vice president's, but he did not try to make things difficult for the youth. The next morning, Lei Yan and the rest went to find Yi Qing. The vice president had wanted to see how Yi Qingtang's teaching progressed. In the end, those teenagers were standing there in a row, their faces all bruised. The vice president was stunned. Apart from Mu Ziying and Yunqin, Lei Yan and the rest were all roughed up. Yi Qingtang, they must be doing this on purpose? Boss, let me explain. We wanted to have a friendly sparring session yesterday but forgot to hold back. Nangong Lai had already thought up an excuse. Yi Qingtang surveyed them with an incredulous look. The vice president cleared his throat. Boss. He glanced at Yi Qing. Why did this form of address sound so kick-ass? Yi Qingtang felt like killing herself. Did these brats come especially to dig her an early grave? The vice president gave a slight shake of his head as he looked at Yi Qing. After instructing the students to continue their cultivation, the vice president went to sit inside his study. Teacher Luo Sheng was standing at the side, watching the vice president's somewhat disappointed expression. Vice president. The vice president raised his hand. Perhaps I was wrong in my estimation. Teacher Luo Sheng sighed softly. The wretched appearance of those brats today was truly dumbfounding. Chapter 2209. Invitation. 2. Just as the two were hesitating over whether to let Yi Qing continue at the Netherworld Academy, Teacher Luo from the medicine faculty hurried over. Vice President. Speak. Yesterday, I had Yunqin refine a new batch of cypress elixirs in front of me. This is the result. Teacher Luo was very agitated and had already placed the bottle of elixirs in front of the vice president. The vice president and Teacher Luo Sheng had no idea why Teacher Luo from the medicine faculty was so agitated. They opened the bottle and looked inside. The two of them were stunned. Yunqin refined these? Teacher Luo Sheng looked at Teacher Luo incredulously. Teacher Luo nodded. That's right. Several other teachers from the medicine faculty and I personally watched him refine this. We witnessed the entire process clearly. In fact, We were worried that it was just a fluke and even made him refine a few more again. With that, Teacher Luo took out the rest of the elixirs. The quality of all those elixirs was the same. They were also the same as the initial ones which Yun Chen had given the medicine faculty. He was a teenager who only had a 10% success rate in refining elixirs. But he managed to improve his rate to 100% in just a short 2 weeks. And the effectiveness of these pills had already far surpassed that of the quality required by the medicine faculty by leaps and bounds. The vice president and Teacher Luo Sheng exchanged looks. Teacher Luo was unable to conceal his excitement. Vice President, I want to see Teacher Yi again. Yi Qingtang was just preparing to ask Lei Yan and his gang what the hell had they been up to yesterday. But before she could say anything, the vice president had come over with Teacher Luo Sheng and Teacher Luo. Yi Qing, Teacher Luo has something to say to you. Lei Yan and the rest looked at Teacher Luo guardedly. When Yunchen came back this morning, he already told them why he had been called away yesterday. The medicine faculty suspected that Yi Qing was helping him cheat and wanted him to undergo the test again. The teenagers were well aware that the medicine faculty was full of prejudice against their boss. It must be because of those folks from the medicine faculty that boss was being kept at the vice president's. And now, they were coming to stir more trouble for their boss. Yi Qingtang noticed the angry expressions of those brats and felt rather exasperated. Stepping forward, she looked at Teacher Luo. I will tear off his beard if this goon from the medicine faculty dares to make things difficult for boss, Lei Yan growled in a low voice. With the vice president around, the medicine faculty teacher probably wouldn't dare to do anything rash, Nangong Lai said. Mu Xing's eyes were fixed upon Yi Qing's back. The eyes of her puppet seemed to glint. Likewise, Teacher Luo stepped forward and looked at Yi Qing impassively. Teacher Luo suddenly reached out. Here it comes. This medicine faculty goon wanted to attack boss. Fight him to the death. Just as Lei Yan and the rest were prepared to sacrifice themselves to protect boss, Teacher Luo suddenly grabbed Yi Qing's hand. Teacher Yi, are you interested in joining our medicine faculty? Yi Qingtang, Nangong Lai and the rest were dumbstruck. What was happening? Where was the prejudice? Where was the troublemaking? Teacher Luo, why aren't you acting according to the script? By the side, the vice president and Teacher Luo Sheng were not that shocked. Yun Chen's situation at the medicine faculty had been a very tricky issue. But after being under Yi Qing for just a short while, not only had his problem been resolved, but his elixir refining skills had also improved tremendously. Chapter 2210, Invitation 3, Teacher Luo spoke again. Teacher Yi, I don't know how you did it, but you have been a great help to Yun Chen's elixir refinement progress. I heard that you also have some interest in refining elixirs. Teacher Luo had no idea how Yi Qing managed to stabilize Yun Chen's elixir refinement quality level, but just this point alone was enough to make him feel that he just had to invite Yi Qing to join the medicine faculty. After all, there were all sorts of bloodlines in this world. And many bloodlines had a negative impact on refining elixirs. If Yi Qing had some solution to manage this issue, it would definitely be a boon to the medicine faculty. Teacher Luo wants me to be a teacher in the medicine faculty? Yi Qingtang was calm as she asked in a mild tone. Teacher Luo smiled. Not exactly. Teacher Yi, you seem adept at controlling the negative effects that some bloodlines have on elixir refinement. I wish to have you join the medicine faculty as a warden. The Netherworld Academy also had wardens, but they were on a completely different level than teachers. They only had a slightly higher status than students and were only in charge of miscellaneous duties around the academy. The faces of Lei Yan and the rest, who were initially shocked by the fact that their boss was going to be poached by the medicine faculty, immediately shifted. They appeared rather conflicted now. Asking their boss to be a warden at the medicine faculty? Teacher Luo must be mad. Teacher Luo appeared oblivious to the looks on the faces of Lei Yan and the rest as he continued. Teacher Yi knows that the teachers in our medicine faculty have to be at least high-level alchemists. Moreover, I heard that Teacher Yi is not an official teacher in the Netherworld Academy. If you accept my invitation and become a warden of the medicine faculty, you can become an official member of the Netherworld Academy. Also, since Teacher Yi is interested in refining elixirs, We can guide you along in your efforts. If Teacher Yi is talented enough, you might even become a real teacher in the future. Teacher Luo's words held no malicious intentions. He was just speaking according to what he understood about Yi Qing's situation. Teacher Luo thought that Yi Qing was interested in refining elixirs because he heard of her request to borrow an alchemy lab. This was why he was offering this olive branch. If she could resolve the bloodline problem, the medicine faculty would naturally give her a place here. But Yun Chen and the rest nearly spat out blood in anger at his words. Give boss guidance in refining elixirs? You must be joking. What was the current standard of those teachers at the medicine faculty? Which one of them had the right to guide their boss? Even Yun Chen, who was from the medicine faculty himself, looked as grim as if he had just eaten a pile of shit. Teacher Luo's words were like a joke to their ears. A person who could refine Grand Master-level elixirs becoming a warden at the medicine faculty? No other academy would dare to put on such airs in the entire second domain. Yi Qingtang did not give too much reaction on hearing Teacher Luo's words. She just shook her head. Thank you, Teacher Luo, for your kind intentions, but let's just forget about it. Teacher Luo didn't expect Yi Qing to reject him. It should be pointed out that although Yi Qing was called a teacher now, he was not an official teacher of the Netherworld Academy. The academy could kick him out the door at any time. Why? Teacher Luo looked at Yi Qing in confusion. Chapter 22:11, Invitation, 4, Yi Qingtang smiled. Yun Chen is not my only student. If I go over to the medicine faculty, won't I have to abandon the rest of my students? After all, Yun Chen alone was not enough for her to join the Inter-Academy competition and obtain the Wind-Calming Pearl to leave this domain. Yi Qingtang did not forget that she was a wanted person by the Temple of Paragon. Who knew if they were searching all over for her right now? Leaving this domain as soon as possible was more important to her now than anything. The reincarnation of the Holy Lord? She had to distance herself from them as much as possible. Yi Qingtang had her reasons, but the eyes of the little brats filled with hot tears when they heard her words. Extremely touched, they stared at Yi Qing with watery eyes. Yi Qingtang. She tried to ignore those emotional faces. Teacher Luo frowned slightly. He didn't expect Yi Qing to reject him because of this reason. He wanted to continue persuading Yi Qing, but the vice president spoke up. Even if Yi Qing doesn't join the medicine faculty, I am sure he won't just stand by and do nothing if there are other people in the medicine faculty with the same problem as Yun Chen, right? The vice president was looking at Yi Qing as he spoke. Yi Qingtang nodded. After getting this guarantee, Teacher Luo didn't continue pursuing the matter. Anyway, the main appeal of Yi Qing to the medicine faculty was her ability to help out with the bloodline issue. Since she was willing to help, it didn't matter whether or not she joined the faculty. After Teacher Luo left, the vice president gave a few instructions to Yi Qing before leaving with Teacher Luo Sheng. Once they had left, Nangong Lai and the rest surrounded Yi Qing. The medicine faculty folks are just a bunch of fools. Our boss elixir refining abilities are so awesome, but they want him to be warden? Dream on. Lei Yan snorted. Nangong Lai grinned as he hustled over to stand in front of Yi Qing. Boss, you can't bear to leave this group of handsome, dashing, valiant teenagers, right? In response, Yi Qingtang replied with a smack across his face. Stop fooling around. I have instructions for you. Yi Qing's tone was serious. Now that the medicine faculty had been settled, according to her estimations, Zhang Qiqiu should have already ingested the elixir and his bloodline would recover in a few days. Yi Qingtang was not really too bothered by either of those two things. She had a more pressing issue to settle. And that was to increase the powers of this bunch of brats before the Inter-Academy competition. I have a list here. Go back and prepare a set each. Remember to inform Qin Feng, Yi Qingtang instructed as she handed copies of the list to the teenagers. Lei Yan and the rest scanned the list and realized that the items on it were rather peculiar. They could not understand why these things were needed. Boss, why do you want us to prepare these items? Nangong Lai realized that the list included a tent. Did boss want them to set up camp at the vice president's? Go back and prepare. In a few days, I will bring you guys out for training, Yi Qingtang replied. She had already made careful calculations. If she wanted to improve their powers to a satisfactory level before the inter-academy competition, it was impossible for them to remain on campus. True powers were honed from real battles, not mere shadowboxing in a practice arena. Chapter 22:12, Invitation, 5. Yi Qingtang had checked earlier that the Netherworld Academy would arrange training excursions for students outside of the campus every year, led by teachers. So her decision was not against the rules. Training excursion? Boss, where are we going? Flaming Valley? Or, curious, Nangong Lai listed out several locations. These were all the usual external training grounds frequented by Netherworld Academy students. Yi Qingtang replied, "You will know in time." In bringing these brats out for training, Yi Qingtang could also conduct her own training. It would not be a waste of time. There was still no news from Di Nua, but Yi Qingtang was not anxious. No news from Di Nua was good news. Otherwise, going by Di Nua's fervent desire to drive her out of the Netherworld Academy, he would have already kicked up a huge fuss at the vice presidents if the elixir was ineffective. Like this, Yi Qingtang peacefully stayed at the vice presidents over the next few days, guiding those brats in their cultivation. Time passed day by day. Yi Qingtang still saw no sign of Di Nua, but teacher Luo Sheng suddenly approached the vice president one day. He had gone to visit Zhang Qiqiu and discovered that his bloodline had already started to recover. The vice president was also very shocked by the turn of events. But since this confirmed that Yi Qing was not just speaking nonsense, he relaxed and allowed Yi Qing to return to the classroom to teach. That very afternoon, after Yi Qingtang regained her freedom, she led the already prepared Lei Yan and the others out of the academy for their training. Who knew if that scoundrel Di Nua would try to stir up more trouble? She did not have that much time to waste on him. Yi Qingtang had just left the Netherworld Academy with those brats of hers when Di Nua was summoned by the vice president. How is Zhang Qiqiu's bloodline? The vice president had already heard from teacher Luo Sheng and was relieved, but it was still better to hear the details from Di Nua himself. Moreover, the vice president was exceptionally curious about this elixir which could heal bloodlines. He is slightly more stable now, but has yet to fully recover. Di Nua looked rather unhappy. He thought that he could definitely drive Yi Qing out of the Netherworld Academy this time, but he never imagined that she could concoct such an elixir. To say that Di Nua was displeased that his plans came to nothing was an understatement. As long as there are results, it is a good thing. The vice president nodded. One corner of Di Nua's lip curled up discreetly, but he maintained a serious manner as he spoke. Yi Qing's elixir does have some effect, but this doesn't deny the fact that he allowed his students to commit such a grave offense. Vice President, please reconsider if this kind of person is really suitable to remain in our Netherworld Academy. Since Yi Qing came to the Netherworld Academy, many teachers have been discussing if he has the proper qualifications. Although Zhang Qiqiu's condition has improved slightly, he has yet to fully recover. No one knows if he can ever fully recover, the vice president replied. Let's get Yi Qing to come over and ask him if he can fully recover then. Initially, the vice president didn't believe that there were elixirs that could heal bloodlines, but Yi Qing had given him a huge surprise. Di Nua was taken aback by the vice president's words. Vice President, Yi Qing is not here? The vice president replied, after teacher Luo Sheng told me about Zhang Qiqiu's improvement today, I allowed Yi Qing to leave first. His students have been missing him. Di Nua's expression underwent a major shift. Vice President, how can you let him leave just like that? What if he flees? Chapter 22:13, Training 1. Even though Yi Qing's elixir was showing some results, Di Nua still did not believe that the elixir could fully heal Zhang Qiqiu's bloodline. The vice president smiled. Yi Qing is not a bad person by nature, and Zhang Qiqiu's bloodline has improved. Why would he need to flee? With that, the vice president ordered someone to have Yi Qing come to meet them. But after a short while, he received some news. Not long after leaving the vice president's quarters, Yi Qing had left the Netherworld Academy. The vice president could no longer maintain the smile on his face. Dino Haddon, I told you so. Look. Vice President, you were too kind-hearted. We don't know Yi Qing's background. He was only in the academy for a short while before stirring up so much trouble. How can you trust someone like him? The vice president frowned slightly. He didn't expect Yi Qing to leave. And he had just started to place his trust in the youth. Not only had Yi Qing left the Netherworld Academy, but she had also brought Lei Yan and the rest along with her. This situation had gone beyond the vice president's expectations. Yi Qing's departure could be explained by a guilty escape from his offense. But bringing along that bunch of teenagers? What did that mean? Vice President, Yi Qing is not an upright person. Those students were seduced and controlled by him. Who knows what kind of dire incident would come out of that? I advise Vice President to immediately send out men to capture Yi Qing back to the academy. Independently leaving the academy with his students in tow, and at a time like this, one truly couldn't help thinking there might be something nefarious behind his actions. Although the Netherworld Academy already wanted to kick those students out, before that officially happened, they were still a part of the academy. If they created any trouble outside, wouldn't it be a smear on the Netherworld Academy's reputation? The vice president realized the gravity of the situation, and he couldn't help giving a soft sigh. I will let you handle this matter. Di Nuo immediately nodded. Yes. With that, Di Nuo left. Within half an hour, the Netherworld Academy issued a warrant for Yi Qing. Meanwhile, Yi Qing Tang and her group had already started their training journey and had no idea what was happening. How could Yi Qing Tang have been aware that leading a training excursion for those few brats would end up being twisted into a scenario where she had seduced those students, and she was now on the wanted list? In reality, there was no problem for teachers leading their students out of the campus for training, but they had to report it first. Yi Qing Tang had never been a teacher and had no idea about such regulations. Moreover, since Yi Qing Tang was not an official teacher and didn't have the right to lead students out on a training excursion, Yi Qing Tang did not know any of this. At this moment, she was leading those teenagers past the mountains toward her destination. Where is boss bringing us? This route seems different from the usual ones. Lei Yan surveyed the surroundings, which were growing increasingly barren. He looked very curious. Amongst them, only Qin Feng had gone outside for a training excursion led by a teacher. Lei Yan couldn't help looking at Qin Feng after that fight with Qin Xian. The relationship between the teenagers had become much more harmonious. Especially for Qin Feng. Lei Yan was not as fearful of Qin Feng as before. Qin Feng replied to Lei Yan with just a slight shake of his head. How in the world would he know where Yi Qing was taking them? This teacher's way of thinking was quite different from most teachers. Chapter 22:14. Training 2. They were all Paragon 6th heaven level and above, and were able to easily travel at high speeds. Even so, they had already journeyed for several days and nights and had yet to arrive at Yi Qing's so-called training grounds. Yi Qing also refused to tell them where they were going. The teenagers' curiosity grew increasingly intense. Until the 10th day, the teenagers were finally led by Yi Qing to the outside of a gray forest. The sight made the teenagers all turn pale. Looking at that gloomy forest, Lei Yan could feel all his hairs standing straight up. The plants in this forest were exceptionally queer. He couldn't see any bit of green. It was all gray as if it had lost all color. They were standing on the outside of the forest but could already feel the subtle death energy and bitter cold intertwined with the dense fog enveloping the place. It was like they were going to step into some deadly ghost realm, somewhere that did not belong to the mortal world. Has B-Boss gone mad? This is the evil soul forest. Lei Yan stammered. At this point, his face looked even worse than if he had been crying. The expressions of the other teenagers were just as terrible. Only Jing Zhe and Mu Xing looked befuddled. They had never heard of the evil soul forest. The evil soul forest. What is this place? Jing Zhe looked at the frightened Lei Yan doubtfully. The corners of Lei Yan's lips twitched as he looked at Jing Zhe as if he was a monster. You don't know about the evil soul forest? Jing Zhe nodded quietly. Lei Yan hesitated, not knowing how to explain to Jing Zhe and Mu Xing. At this moment, Yi Qing's voice rang out. The evil soul forest used to be a normal forest, but tens of thousands of years ago, a battle between deities and demons occurred here. Legend had it that a fiend celestial died in this forest. His life energy dissipated but the remnants of his divine consciousness remained. The Fiend Celestial's divine consciousness guided all the souls in the second domain to gather here. All the living creatures in this forest were devoured by those souls, transforming this place into a forbidden area. Any living creature who steps foot into this forest will be cursed by the Fiend Celestial's divine consciousness, and then ripped to pieces by the countless souls here. Yi Qing's voice was soft and flat as if narrating an ancient tale to innocent little children. Lei Yan was already covered in goosebumps. By the side, Nangong Lai also looked very grim. He rubbed the goosebumps on his arms. "Boss, don't tell me you want us to train in the evil soul forest?" Yi Qingtang turned to look at Nangong Lai, whose face was filled with disbelief. Under his despondent gaze, she nodded. "Congratulations, you've guessed correctly." Nangong Lai felt like crying. Could he beg for another chance to answer? "Boss, just tell us if you are unhappy about anything or if we displeased you in any way. Why don't you just lash us a couple of times instead? Why so much hatred? Why so vengeful? Why send them into the evil soul forest?" This was a major forbidden area in the domain. "Boss, please have mercy. We cannot enter such a place." Lei Yan just wanted to run as far from this evil soul forest as possible. Qin Feng and Yun Chen also looked conflicted. Meanwhile, Jing Zhe and Mu Xing had never heard of the evil soul forest before, and so didn't have much of a reaction. Chapter 22:15, Training 3. Scared? Yi Qing asked them with raised eyebrows. For the sake of their lives, Lei Yan and Nangong Lai set aside their dignity and immediately nodded. They would do anything. Anything. Just don't make them enter the evil soul forest. Yi Qingtang smiled. In her previous life, she had never set foot in this domain. But the reputation of the evil soul forest had spread to other domains. All of the descriptions were exceptionally terrifying. Yi Qingtang had been very respectful and fearful of this place. But after she happened upon a certain adventurer in her previous life, she finally discovered the truth behind this evil soul forest. I forgot to tell you that the Fiend Celestial's curse is not limited to the inside of the forest, but includes a 1-mile radius surrounding it, Yi Qingtang said with a serious face. The moment she said those words, Lei Yan and Nangong Lai were thunderstruck. Even Qin Feng and Yun Chen's faces underwent a major shift. 1 mile? They were less than 100 meters away from the evil soul forest. Didn't this mean they were already cursed by this place? Once you are cursed, you won't be able to evade it even after fleeing far from the evil soul forest. You guys have already been marked by that Fiend Celestial. No matter how far you run, those souls will find you and kill you. Lei Yan's face turned pale and his legs trembled nonstop. The others reacted just as badly as him. Boss, what hatred, what grievance. Lei Yan felt like crying. Looking at Lei Yan's face, Yi Qingtang suppressed her mirth. Actually, there's a solution. As long as you guys can survive 100 days inside the evil soul forest, the curse will naturally dispel on its own. 100 days. Those teenagers really felt like dying. But Yun Chen's expression eased up a little. He looked at Yi Qing with a sudden incredulity. The evil soul forest had a fearsome reputation. No one would dare to risk their own lives. The Fiend Celestial's curse, it was really lethal. All right, since we have arrived here safely, let us work hard together and survive in this place for 100 days. A bright grin was on Yi Qing's face. It was like she did not see the mournful faces of those teenagers. They had been wrong. Utterly wrong. They had been blinded and thought that their boss was warm and tender. But he was a demon. It was too late to try and run now. They could only acknowledge their fate. Under Yi Qing's lead, the teenagers stepped into the foggy, gray forest with determined hearts. The expansive ground of the evil soul forest was covered with thick layers of withered leaves. Goodness knew how many layers of dead leaves were there. The layers felt exceptionally soft beneath their feet, and some parts were also damp. Before long, Lei Yan felt dampness in both his feet. His shoes were already soaked with an unknown liquid. That chill crept from the bottom of his soles right up to his spine. Lei Yan was not that bold. He could swagger around the academy only because he was part of the Lei Tang family. Now, in this godforsaken place, all the hairs on his body were standing on end. He had no idea what he had just stepped on. Lei Yan suddenly felt like something was grabbing his leg. With a wail, he leaped into the air and clung onto Yi Qing like a sloth. Yi Qing was nearly crushed by this burly teenager. What's that? It's a ghost! A ghost! Lei Yan wailed. Chapter 22:16, Spy Cloud 1. Speechless, Yi Qing looked down at Lei Yan, whose leg was caught on a tree branch. Lei Yan turned to look before awkwardly climbing down from Yi Qing's body. You're afraid of ghosts? Yi Qing looked at Lei Yan incredulously. The question made Lei Yan feel like burying his head in his chest. Yi Qing, my goodness! There were all sorts of alien races in the second domain, their numbers on par with that of the human population. Apart from the undead clan and those other races associated with death, there was also one called the Ghost Clan. The Netherworld Academy had people from the Ghost Clan. Although they were different from those ghosts that you heard of in stories, Lei Yan had been in the Netherworld Academy for so long that he must have encountered some folks from the Ghost Clan. But he was afraid of ghosts? Yi Qingtang quietly shook her head as she looked at the tall, burly Lei Yan. It turned out his burly stature was just for show. Yi Qingtang and her group traveled in the Evil Soul Forest for a long time. They suddenly heard a faint, strange noise drifting over from somewhere nearby. Lei Yan had been crouching the entire journey, feeling a desperate urge to just climb onto Nangong Lai's back. On the contrary, the youngest of them all, Mu Xing, showed no fear. Instead, she surveyed this spooky environment with wide, curious eyes. Can you please stop clinging onto me? Do you know how heavy you are? Nangong Lai was feeling suffocated by Lei Yan. Lei Yan's face was green. No matter how much Nangong Lai scolded him, he refused to loosen his grip. You are a big man, what are you afraid of? This godforsaken place has been desolate for such a long time. Even if there were souls here, they would have already disappeared with the wind. Can you please calm down? Nangong Lai said. Really? Dazed with fear, Lei Yan looked at Nangong Lai with skeptical eyes. Really? Even more real than real gold, Nangong Lai rolled his eyes. He had also been quite scared initially. But on seeing Lei Yan's foolish antics, he suddenly didn't feel that afraid anymore. Still skeptical, Lei Yan finally loosened his grip slightly. Before Lei Yan could calm down, a sudden shriek sounded out from nearby. It was an ear-piercing shriek. Thereafter, a strange bestial roar rang out. No one could tell what kind of beast it was from that roar. It was full of power but also somewhat illusory. What was that noise? Lei Yan was stupefied. Yi Qingtang did not react to that shriek, but her eyes glinted after that beastly roar. Before those greenhorn teenagers could understand what was going on, the thick stench of blood permeated the air. A figure was sprinting toward them. Help, save me. Noticing Yi Qingtang and her group, the person, who had been dashing here and there, immediately raced toward them like they were his final hope. What's going on? There are humans here? Nangong Lai didn't expect to see humans in the Evil Soul Forest. Wasn't this place a forbidden area? He looks like someone from Spy Cloud. Qin Feng narrowed his eyes. Spy Cloud was a mysterious faction in the second domain. This faction had only one principle: money above all. They were a faction that was only concerned with profits. Spy Cloud members were spread across all corners of the second domain. As long as you could pay, Spy Cloud would do anything for you and help you attain anything you wanted. Chapter 22:17, Spy Cloud 2. When Qin Feng was young, he had once seen an elder hire someone from Sky Cloud, so he knew what this faction was like. Let alone the emblem of Sky Cloud was stitched onto the chest of the person's clothes. It was rumored that as long as one offered enough money, there was nothing Sky Cloud could not do. Even so, Qin Feng did not understand why someone from Sky Cloud would come to the Evil Soul Forest. In the blink of an eye, the person had arrived in front of Yi Qingtang and her group. The person was so frightened that his face was pale as a sheet of paper. His clothes were covered with fresh blood stains and his eyes were crazed. He was like a madman and one of his legs seemed to be injured. Limping, he left behind a trail of blood wherever he went. He looked like he was in his early 30s, but his appearance was extremely wretched now. Help! That person looked at the group of living humans as if they were his saviors. He threw himself toward Yi Qingtang, who was in the lead, his widened eyes filled with terror. At this point, Nangong Lai and the rest suddenly realized that he was missing one eye. It looked like someone had just gouged out his left eye. All that was left was a dark, bloodied hole. Dead? All dead. Everyone is dead. A monster killed them. The man was in a frenzy and tears of blood flowed out of his eye socket. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. The hairs on Lei Yan and the rest all stood on end on hearing the words of the man. Monster? What monster? Boss, let's escape now. Lei Yan hurriedly spoke up. But before Lei Yan could finish his words, that strange beastly howl rang out again in the evil soul forest. In the next second, a massive black figure weaved through the dense forest, rapidly charging toward them. That black figure was extremely bizarre. It was pitch black as if it was a big mass of sludge. All the plants which came into contact with it seemed to merge into its body, before reappearing again after it passed. Ghastly wails followed the black figure as it came closer and closer. What is that? Lei Yan's heart leaped nearly to his eyes on seeing that massive black figure. Night Soul Beast. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes as she stared at the large black mass. What is a Night Soul Beast? Lei Yan was stunned. A servant of the Fiend Celestial. It was born from all the gathered resentment of grievous souls. It eats human souls as food. Yi Qingtang explained impassively. But Yi Qingtang didn't tell them one additional point. And that was the Night Soul Beast especially loved souls that were filled with terror and despondency. Souls filled to the brim with negative feelings were the best delicacy for this Night Soul Beast. Thus, when a Night Soul Beast hunted, it would try its best to force someone to the edge of despair. Hurry up and run. That Night Soul Beast killed over 100 people from my team. It is a monster. The man from Spy Cloud wailed fearfully. He gripped Yi Qingtang's arm in a begging manner, praying that they would bring him along and escape far away. Lei Yan and the others looked even grimmer, especially Qin Feng. He had some knowledge about Spy Cloud and knew that they would definitely send a strong contingent into a place like this. But all that was left of them was this man. Boss, let's run now. Lei Yan cried in panic. Yi Qingtang narrowed her eyes. It's too late. Chapter 22:18, Spy Cloud 3. Several people were taken aback. What? Yi Qingtang looked at the gradually approaching Night Soul Beast. At this distance, the Night Soul Beast has already detected the scent of our souls. Once a Night Soul Beast locks onto you, it will keep following the scent of your soul until it finds you and swallows your soul. Your team was not familiar with the evil soul forest. It is very foggy and it is inevitable that you will get separated when fleeing. Those who were separated from the main group would definitely die. Yi Qingtang spoke impassively. The Night Soul Beast came this way as it had been pursuing after the Spy Cloud man. But now, they were all within its detection. They had to flee out of the evil soul forest before the Night Soul Beast caught up with them. But the Night Soul Beast's speed was faster than any human. They were born from souls and there were souls everywhere in the evil soul forest. Mewing, swallow this elixir. Yi Qing stuffed a pill into Mewing's mouth. Yun Chen, protect Mewing. The rest of you follow me. Everyone was stunned by Yi Qing's orders. Even the man was stunned. What are you guys doing? Are you all mad? You won't be able to defeat it. There were over 100 people in my team and they all died in the hands of that Night Soul Beast. Even a Divine Lord level practitioner was no match for it. You are just hurrying to your death. The man believed this bunch of people must have gone mad. The most powerful amongst them was just a Paragon 8th heaven level. Most of the others were just 6th or 7th heaven level. How could this group of kids hope to fend against a Night Soul Beast? Yi Qingtang ignored the man's cries. She immediately arranged for what Lei Yan and the rest should do next. Lei Yan had been somewhat afraid, but after hearing Yi Qing say that he had already been locked on by the Night Soul Beast and it was either him or the beast, his mind immediately cleared up. In just the blink of an eye, Yun Chen covered Mu Xing protectively while she swallowed Yi Qing's pill. A strange glint flashed across her eyes. Meanwhile, the Night Soul Beast had already arrived before Yi Qingtang and the rest. It was massive, but even more terrifying was that after it came near, Nangong Lai and the group realized this night soul beast body was just a half-transparent mass of murky, viscous liquid. And through the translucent parts of its body, the twisted faces of people floated about. They were the souls swallowed by the beast. Yi Qingtang didn't expect to meet a night soul beast so soon after entering the evil soul forest. Even so, Yi Qingtang was not anxious at all. She quietly gestured for Nangong Lai, Lei Yan, Jing Zhe and Qin Feng to hide in their own corners. Meanwhile, she charged to the front to attract the beast's attention. "So painful, save me!" The souls swallowed by the night soul beast emitted mournful cries. The hairs of Lei Yan and the rest all stood on end as they observed the souls swirling endlessly inside the night soul beast's body. The night soul beast's attention was all focused on Yi Qingtang now. The black mass suddenly churned wildly. In the next second, countless black hands shot out from the night soul beast's body, heading straight toward Yi Qingtang. The hearts of Lei Yan and the rest surged up to their eyes at the sight of those countless hands. Chapter 22:19, Night Soul Beast 1, Close Your Eyes. Yi Qing suddenly shouted. Lei Yan and the rest, who were all hiding, were slightly taken aback. Although they had no idea why Yi Qing was ordering them to do so, they instinctively obeyed her instructions and immediately shut their eyes. Observing Yi Qing's actions and the mass of hands looking like one huge black net, the spy cloud man felt that Yi Qing must be crazy. He could see that Yi Qing was the weakest person in that group. But not only did he not flee, he charged forward. Close your eyes? Close your eyes and wait for death? Perhaps the spy cloud man had already witnessed too many companions die before him. It was like he had already foreseen Yi Qing's imminent death. He shut his eyes in resignation. This bunch of folks were mad. Not fleeing at the sight of the night soul beast, he would probably also die here. Everyone shut their eyes according to Yi Qing's order. Yi Qingtang was the only one who continued staring coldly at the countless hands surging to her. Her eyes were calm without even the slightest sliver of panic. The endless wails of those souls swallowed by the night soul beast continuously assaulted her ears. Yi Qingtang's view of those hands was different from what the others saw. As those hands approached her, Yi Qingtang remained unmoving on the spot. Just as those hands were about to make contact with her, they suddenly passed right through her. She was completely unharmed. Illusion. Yi Qingtang gazed impassively at those illusory hands. In her previous life, it was already 200 to 300 years later when Yi Qingtang heard of the evil soul forest. By then, the mystery behind this forest had already been solved by people. Those fearsome-looking night soul beasts were a type of demon. A demon formed by the gathering of tens of thousands of grievances and resentment. The more one feared it, the more powerful they became. A person's fear and terror at seeing a night soul beast would make the beast even more fearsome. The night soul beast was born from the resentment of grievous souls and relied on their power. The more afraid you were of it, the more it could sense the fear in your heart, the more powerful it would be. If you were not afraid of it, it could not use your fear to support its form. At this moment, everyone had shut their eyes and could not see the night soul beast. Their fear and thoughts about the night soul beast had been cut off. Yi Qingtang was the only one who could see it and without any fear or regard. Like this, the massive night soul beast was only seen by Yi Qingtang. Its huge, heinous form started to melt. This human was not afraid of it. The night soul beast could not feel Yi Qingtang's fear. Her inner mind was exceptionally calm, and this was not a pleasant sight for the night soul beast. Suddenly, the souls in the night soul beast's body emitted a fresh round of wails. Those wails, sounding as if they were coming from the depths of hell, drifted over to the ears of everyone. Lei Yan and the others stiffened in fear at those wails. But they suddenly heard Yi Qing's voice. "Keep your eyes closed. Cover your eyes." The group did not understand Yi Qing's orders, but they followed her instructions and covered their ears, completely isolating themselves from the evil soul forest. See no evil, hear no evil. The fear inside their hearts transformed into worry instead. The night soul beast became increasingly furious. It realized that the fear it had been sensing was declining. Despite the constant wailing of those souls, Its body started to shrink at a discernible pace. Chapter 2220, Night Soul Beast 2. After confirming that everyone's ears were covered, the corners of Yi Qingtang's lips suddenly lifted in a slight smile. She gazed at the shrinking Night Soul Beast. Night Soul Beast, born from grievances, surviving by swallowing souls, the source of your power is fear. But now, you don't seem to have any fear to swallow. Yi Qingtang's voice was unhurried and calm. The Night Soul Beast's originally massive body had now shrunk into human height. And it was continuing to shrink. The Night Soul Beast was shocked. It had never met a human like this. She was not afraid of it at all. Impossible. And Yi Qingtang's words shocked the Night Soul Beast even more. This human knew their secret? No matter how many people entered the evil soul forest, fear crept into their hearts the moment they saw them. And the more people there were, the more fear would accumulate, and the more powerful the Night Soul Beast would become. That was why it had become the notorious terror of the evil soul forest, a demon that could never be defeated. But now, the unfearing Yi Qingtang was the only one left in front of the Night Soul Beast. The others had shut off their senses according to Yi Qingtang's instructions. Fear was the power source of the Night Soul Beast. Yi Qingtang had cut off its power source and the Night Soul Beast shrank more and more. In the blink of an eye, it had melted down into a cat-sized shape. So this is the Night Soul Beast's true form. Yi Qingtang looked at the small Night Soul Beast curiously. The Night Soul Beast looked more or less like a black cat. But a pair of gray horns sprouted out from beside its ears and it looked rather strange. The Night Soul Beast had never seen such a daring human. Recalling all the humans it had encountered before, all of them had been scared out of their wits the moment they saw it. Even the most powerful could not conceal the fear in their hearts, which only made the beast stronger. But where did this fellow come from? He was not afraid of it at all? Sensing that Yi Qingtang was different from the other humans it had seen, the Night Soul Beast suddenly turned and headed toward the deeper recesses of the forest. Without fear to nourish it, the more calm the other party was, the weaker it would grow. But there was no way Yi Qingtang would let it go so easily. She had picked the evil soul forest as a training ground as this place had something very important in her eyes. In a flash, Yi Qingtang captured the fleeing Night Soul Beast. Yi Qingtang had no fear in her heart at all. She calmly examined the Night Soul Beast in her hands. The Night Soul Beast was unable to make use of fear to maintain its form. The originally fearsome Night Soul Beast was now held up in Yi Qingtang's hands like a strange cat. The Night Soul Beast. Yi Qingtang suddenly smiled at the beast. The Night Soul Beast felt like the sky and earth were spinning so hard that it felt like vomiting. It trembled all over. It fed on fear and hated happiness to the core. No fear or panic, only smiles and joy. This was a grievous blow to the Night Soul Beast. Seeing the Night Soul Beast's reaction, Yi Qingtang confirmed that the rumors she had heard were true. Hundreds of years later, several people who desired things from the evil soul forest invaded the forest and ended up with massive fatalities. One of the men was so struck by fear that he turned into an imbecile. And that imbecile ended up emerging from the evil soul forest carrying a cat-like creature. Chapter 2221, Night Soul Beast 3. Thereafter, the Night Soul Beast's weakness was made known throughout the entire second domain. The evil soul forest's notorious reputation was dispelled after that. Born from negative feelings, this was a monster who swallowed souls. But it was also an evil being who feared laughter and happiness. If Yi Qingtang did not know of this, she would not have dared to bring Lei Yan and the rest of the brats into this place. She had Lei Yan and the rest split up and hide in separate corners as she didn't want them gathered together and feed the Night Soul Beast with their accumulated fear. Meanwhile, Mu Xing was the youngest. Yi Qingtang was worried she might panic due to her young age, and so especially gave her a calming elixir. When dealing with a Night Soul Beast, the most dangerous thing was the fear of others feeding the beast and making it grow stronger. The Night Soul Beast wished to escape from the hands of this strange human. But every time it struggled, Yi Qingtang would smile at it. The smile was a pure one that reached the eyes, making the corners crinkle with joy. That kind of pure happiness was the most detestable thing to a Night Soul Beast. It trembled and suddenly felt drained of all energy by Yi Qingtang's smile. Lei Yan and the others were already prepared to fight to the death with that night soul beast. But after waiting vigilantly for very long, and unable to tell what was happening because their eyes were closed and ears covered, they were filled with worry for Yi Qing. Meanwhile, the spy cloud man, who had been trembling in fear and had shut his eyes just to wait for his death, also waited for a long time but didn't feel any sense of imminent death. He opened his eyes in panic, only to see the formerly wretched scene had turned extraordinarily calm. That common-looking youth was now standing safe and sound in the forest, holding a horned, gray cat. Where is the night soul beast? The man stammered. Yi Qingtang replied, I don't know. When I was fighting it, it suddenly left. The man was dumbstruck. He really couldn't believe that the night soul beast, who had been pursuing him for so long, suddenly just turned and left? Yi Qingtang didn't say anything more but just went over to pat Lei Yan and the others, who were still standing with their eyes closed and ears covered. The teenagers leaped up in all readiness for a big fight but realized that it was just Yi Qing before them. They heaved a sigh of relief. Boss, where did that night soul beast go? Lei Yan was still feeling very unsteady. He surveyed the surroundings but couldn't see the night soul beast. The others were also equally confused. Perhaps it sensed something, it left suddenly, Yi Qing replied casually. The teenagers did not know much about the night soul beast and so just accepted her explanation. But, boss, didn't you say earlier that the night soul beast would remember our scent and keep pursuing us? Will it suddenly return later? Lei Yan swallowed hard. That's not impossible, Yi Qing replied. Lei Yan's heart leaped up to his eyes again. So you all need to become more powerful before it returns. Otherwise, you will never be able to escape it even after leaving the evil soul forest. Yi Qing lied in all seriousness. It was also a myth that the night soul beast would pursue a human to the ends of the earth. In reality, the night soul beast would never leave the evil soul forest. Of course, Yi Qingtang would never tell them that. Instead, she wanted them to stay alert and motivated to improve their powers in this evil soul forest. Chapter 22-22, Nothing Much, 1. Apart from the night soul beast, there were several other demons inside the evil soul forest. Lei Yan and the others could practice on them. This night soul beast is so persistent. Nangong Lai still felt a lingering fear in his heart. Then he suddenly realized that Yi Qing was holding a strange-looking cat. And that gray cat seemed to have rolled its eyes at his words. Boss, what is this? I saw it at the side just now and picked it up. In case we need it later, Yi Qing replied. In case we need it later? Nangong Lai was puzzled. We don't know how long we might have to stay here. We need to prepare more food. Yi Qing lied in all seriousness. The night soul beast, damn you and all your ancestors. Your whole family is food. Before the enraged night soul beast could lash out, Yi Qingtang lowered her head and smiled at it. That smile completely stunned the night soul beast, and it huddled inside Yi Qingtang's arms, not daring to move. But it's so skinny. That's not enough meat, Lei Yan pondered. Better than nothing, Yi Qing replied. The others didn't think much of this matter. They were just very curious over the sudden disappearance of that night soul beast. On the side, the spy cloud man was still fearful. He had just escaped certain death after all. Just as everyone was still feeling doubtful, a sudden movement could be seen in the undergrowth. Turning to look, a team of men riding on horses was approaching. The spy cloud man's eyes lit up on seeing the team. Division head Shi. Hearing the man's cries, the man leading the group halted. He finally saw the man. Peng Ji. Shi Shangfei noticed that the man was gravely injured and his face stiffened. He had his men lift him up. Yi Qingtang noticed that these men all bore the emblem of Spy Cloud. They must all belong to Spy Cloud. But few people dared to venture into the evil soul forest. Why did Spy Cloud suddenly dispatch so many men here? Peng Ji finally shed his fear upon seeing his companions. He hurriedly told Shi Shangfei and his men about his encounter with the Night Soul Beast and how over 100 Spy Cloud men died. Spy Cloud had dispatched several teams into the evil soul forest, who entered the place via different entrances. Peng Ji's team had been unlucky and was attacked by a night soul beast soon after entering the evil soul forest. He was the only one who survived, albeit with grievous injuries. You encountered a night soul beast? Where is it? Shi Shangfei had heard of the night soul beast and he instinctively frowned. It was planning to attack me and these guys. But somehow, it suddenly left. I had found it very strange, but on second thought, perhaps it sensed that you and your team were approaching and so escaped first. Peng Ji came up with this surmisation after linking the two occurrences. Of all the teams dispatched by Spy Cloud this time, Shi Shangfei's powers were the most formidable. He was already a Divine Lord 5th Heaven level practitioner. On top of that, his team included 10 other Divine Lord practitioners. It could be said that they were the most powerful team in Spy Cloud and the main combat force. The Night Soul Beast is nothing much after all. Shi Shangfei smirked. With his powers, he completely disregarded the Night Soul Beast. The dismal state of Peng Ji and the rest just proved that they had been too weak. Chapter 22-23. Nothing much, too. Peng Ji naturally nodded in agreement. Shi Shangfei finally noticed Yi Qingtang and the rest standing by the side and his brows furrowed slightly. After scanning their group, he realized that the strongest amongst them was just a Paragon 8 Heaven level. He relaxed a little. Who are they? Shi Shangfei asked. Peng Ji answered, they are the people I met just now. Peng Ji wanted to say that they were a bunch of crazy folks. With their mediocre powers, they dared to go against a Night Soul Beast. If Shi Shangfei and his team had not arrived in time and chased off the Night Soul Beast, he would have ended up dying with this group of fools. Who are you? Shi Shangfei looked at Yi Qingtang and her group. As he spoke, his gaze naturally landed on Qin Feng. This youth was the highest level amongst them. Although he was just a Paragon 8th Heaven level, he should be the leader of the group. Qin Feng's face hardened, but he didn't answer. He just instinctively looked toward Yi Qing. Yi Qing replied, we are just your usual bounty hunters. In the various mainlands, there were many times when people were willing to pay money for some affairs to be settled or to seek out certain things. And so, there would naturally be people who were willing to carry out those tasks for the money. This group of people was called bounty hunters. At first, Spy Cloud was also a group of such people. But after their faction grew in power, they no longer dealt in such things. Shi Shangfei frowned slightly after hearing Yi Qingtang say that they were bounty hunters. He clearly did not think much of them. This is not a place for you. If you don't wish to die, please leave. He was trying to chase Yi Qingtang and her group away. Yi Qingtang found it rather strange. Shi Shangfei was trying to chase them off and it triggered her curiosity. And the fact that Spy Cloud would send so many people into the Evil Soul Forest, this was definitely no normal mission. Could it be, had Spy Cloud discovered something inside the Evil Soul Forest? We didn't plan to stay here long. But we have already been marked by the Night Soul Beast, and even if we dig up the entire Evil Soul Forest, we won't be able to escape its pursuit. Yi Qingtang gave a look of exasperation as she pinched the Night Soul Beast's ear. The Night Soul Beast, who would want to pursue you? Let me go, I never want to see you again. Shi Shangfei had of course heard of the myths surrounding the Night Soul Beast. As such, he did not suspect Yi Qingtang's words. But Peng Ji said, since we were fated to meet, I still advise you to leave here as soon as possible. You were lucky today. Although you encountered the Night Soul Beast, you also met our division head Shi. If he had not scared off that Night Soul Beast, you guys would probably already. If you don't leave now, that beast will definitely try to attack you again after we depart. Peng Ji really felt that this bunch of fools wouldn't survive for long in this Evil Soul Forest. They had just been lucky to meet Spy Cloud men, otherwise, they would have all been dead. Yi Qingtang didn't say anything to Peng Ji's warning. She just put on a conflicted and fearful expression. Only the Night Soul Beast in her arms knew. This person looked fearful, but she was completely calm on the inside. Otherwise, why wasn't it growing even a little? Thank you, said Yi Qingtang. Peng Ji gave a small smile. His injuries were grave and he couldn't be bothered with them anymore. Shi Shangfei led his team and left. But after traveling a short distance, Shi Shangfei suddenly asked, Peng Ji, did you notice anything strange about those earlier folks? Chapter 22-24. Nothing much. 3. Peng Ji knew of Spy Cloud's mission. After thinking it through carefully, he replied, I didn't notice anything suspicious. When I first met them with the Night Soul Beast in pursuit, they were also scared witless. The only person who appeared nonchalant was the one who spoke to you just now. I heard those teenagers call him boss. Perhaps he's their leader. He is not powerful, but he still put on a brave front for those teenagers, claiming that he wanted to fight the Night Soul Beast. Peng Ji smirked. Sacrificing one's life to save face. How foolish, Shi Shangfei commented. Peng Ji said, he is really an ignorant fool. If they hadn't met Division Head Shi and your team, they would probably die horrible deaths. But Division Head Shi, if you think it's necessary, we can just... Their mission in the Evil Soul Forest was extremely important. They heard that the other factions had already made their move. They wouldn't be able to bear the consequences if someone else got to it first. Did you say that they had already come face to face with the Night Soul Beast? Shi Shangfei asked. Peng Ji nodded. Then we won't need to bother about them. The Night Soul Beast will settle them for us, Shi Shangfei replied. A ragtag bunch of Paragon-level teenagers. How could they hope to escape the pursuit of a Night Soul Beast? Likewise, Peng Ji couldn't help shuddering at the mention of the Night Soul Beast. He had also been marked by the Night Soul Beast. Don't worry, just heal up. We will protect you. Shi Shangfei could see Peng Ji's fear. Peng Ji heaved a sigh of relief. With Division Head Shi here, I think the Night Soul Beast wouldn't dare to show its face. Shi Shangfei nodded before leading his team forward. On the other side, Lei Yan heaved a sigh of relief after Shi Shangfei and his men left. We were lucky to have met those Spy Cloud men. Otherwise we would have died in the hands of that Night Soul Beast. Lei Yan felt a lingering fear when he recalled the image of that Night Soul Beast. It was only natural that he believed the Night Soul Beast left because it sensed Shi Shangfei and his team approaching. Do you really think the Night Soul Beast fled because of them? Qin Feng raised one eyebrow at the still anxious Lei Yan. Lei Yan nodded. Fool. Qin Feng shot Lei Yan a look. Lei Yan was taken aback by the unexpected insult. Qin Feng explained. Although there were a few Divine Lord-level people in that team, don't you remember that Peng Ji said his team also had a Divine Lord-level practitioner? If a few Divine Lord-level practitioners are enough to make a Night Soul Beast retreat, then the Evil Soul Forest would have long been trampled over by groups of powerful practitioners. A Divine Lord level was powerful in the eyes of humans, but it's nothing to a Night Soul Beast. Amongst them, Qin Feng was the one closest to the Divine Lord level. He had once been just one step away from ascending to that level. How could he not know the disparity between the power of the Night Soul Beast and a Divine Lord level practitioner? Just a dozen Divine Lord level practitioners? Even if Shi Shangfei and his team were all at the Divine Lord level, they would still not be a match for the Night Soul Beast. Yi Qingtang looked pleased as she observed Qin Feng. He was indeed a descendant of the Qin family sword deity. He had pretty good brains. Lei Yan didn't know how to rebut and didn't dare to insist. So he just kept quiet, but his face was full of indignance. Boss, there's danger everywhere here, and we don't know when the Night Soul Beast will appear again. It doesn't matter why it left. We won't be safe if we remain here, Yunchen pointed out as he stepped forward. Chapter 22-25, Shameless, 1. Yi Qingtang nodded and walked down the path leading further into the Evil Soul Forest, still holding the Night Soul Beast. On the inside, however, she was still thinking about Spy Cloud's mission. In her previous life, the Evil Soul Forest's secret was exposed only 200 to 300 years later. But it was only because people had discovered the Night Soul Beast's weakness did they truly start to uncover the secret behind the Evil Soul Forest. But now, the various factions seemed to have an inkling of the Evil Soul Forest's secret and sent forth their men. Could it be Spy Cloud had also received the news? This was not a good thing in Yi Qingtang's opinion. She had come to the Evil Soul Forest thinking that she was earlier than the others by a couple of hundred years, and so there wouldn't be any issues. But they would have some trouble if they collided with those other factions. Yi Qing was deep in thought, but Jing Zhe and the rest did not know what he was thinking. After experiencing the Night Soul Beast, they were even more fearful of the Evil Soul Forest now. They instinctively followed close behind Yiqing whilst vigilantly observing their surroundings. Luckily, they didn't meet any demons in this latter part of their journey. By the time night fell, they even discovered a cave. But that cave was filled with white bones covered with dark red bloodstains that looked freshly dried. The entire cave was filled with the thick stench of blood. The group immediately wanted to retreat on seeing the inside of the cave. Yiqing Tang was the only one whose eyes shone. She had noticed that after arriving at this cave, the night soul beast in her arms underwent a significant change. If she was right, this should be the night soul beast's cave. So she simply walked in. Lei Yan and the rest wanted to stop her but didn't manage to in time. "Boss, this is some demon's cave. If that demon returns and sees us, we will be in deep trouble again," Nangong Lai said. Who knew how many demons there were in this evil soul forest? Just that earlier night soul beast alone was enough to leave a lingering fear in their hearts. It's a cave, that's right, but it looks like it has been abandoned. Now that night has fallen, the smell of blood in here can mask our scent. We won't be discovered by that night soul beast here. Yiqing Tang explained in all seriousness as she surveyed the inside of the cave. Abandoned? The teenagers exchanged looks. Studying those freshly dried bloodstains, this place didn't look like it had just been abandoned. But the moment Yiqing said the words, "Night Soul Beast," the hairs on those teenagers stood on end. Seeing that she was already prepared to settle down, they had no choice but to follow suit. "Boss is so brave. Why do I feel that he is not scared of death at all?" Lei Yan muttered softly, not hiding despite seeing the night soul beast. And now, she even dared to stay in some demon's cave. How brave must one be to behave like that? Yunshin heard Lei Yan's words but didn't react. He only looked at Yiqing's profile from the back, the glow of admiration and respect growing more intense in his eyes. He already believed that Yiqing came from some extraordinary background and might be some kind of secretly powerful hermit. His calm manner in a place like this evil soul forest only reinforced this belief. The night soul beast stared on as this group of pathetic humans barged into its cave. It was nearly driven mad with anger, but it had no choice but to remain in Yiqing Tang's hands, no energy to even struggle, fearing that she would smile at it, kidnapping it and taking over its home. These humans were even more shameless than a demon. Chapter 22-26, Shameless. 2. Lei Yan and the others were still worried over what would happen if that demon came back. In the end, even long after night fell, no demon appeared. Could it be that boss guessed correctly? This cave is truly abandoned? Lei Yan felt that boss was either extremely lucky or extremely smart. The night soul beast, firmly held in Yiqing Tang's arms, could only silently roll its eyes. Still worried, the teenagers decided to take turns and stand guard throughout the night. In the end, nothing happened at all. The next morning, Yiqing Tang gathered them and told them that the best way to cut off the night soul beast's pursuit was to hunt the demons in this forest and cover themselves in the blood of those demons. This would dispel their scent and camouflage their presence amongst the other demons. In this way, the night soul beast wouldn't be able to tell the difference between them and the other demons. The group all felt that the night soul beast was just like an axe hanging over their heads. They had no idea why Yiqing had to bring them to this godforsaken place to train. But no matter how fearful they were, they had no choice but to comply for the sake of their own lives. They truly believed that their boss had brought them here as an evil prank. Yiqing Tang had heard many stories about the evil soul forest in her previous life. So she had a rather good understanding of the demons here. As long as they didn't venture too deep into the forest, they wouldn't encounter demons who were too powerful. She led Lei Yan and the rest to explore the area surrounding the cave. Finding a few mediocre demons, she forced Lei Yan and the rest to step forward and kill them. Fearful of the night soul beast's pursuit, the teenagers could only grit their teeth and charge forward. After their initial fear, they soon realized that if they cooperated, those vicious-looking demons were not as terrifying as they imagined. They didn't know it was because Yiqing Tang had already assessed the powers of those demons and determined that they could be handled by those teenagers. Pressured by the threat of death, Lei Yan and the rest had no choice but to give their best. Even so, the sun was setting by the time they finally killed those demons. Even though they won, the group looked extremely wretched. Nangong Lai almost broke his arm during the fight while Qin Feng was nearly bitten to death by one of the demons. Throughout all of the fights, Yi Qingtang remained at the side observing, but she did not intervene at all. She just carefully analyzed how those brats fought. Perhaps they themselves didn't realize that when they fought the first demon, they had been in truly dire straits. But after achieving a certain level of camaraderie, and having gained some battle experience, their rate of injury lessened considerably toward the end. Because of Yi Qing's earlier advice, the dazed teenagers made several trips to haul those demon carcasses back to the cave. They dug a huge pit and drained the blood from those demons into it. Despite taking in the disgusting stench, they had no choice but to submerge themselves into the pit. I feel like I'm about to die. Boss, do we really need to soak inside this the entire night? I think I'm going to die from the smell. Lei Yan gazed tearfully at Yi Qing. The nauseating stench of demon's blood was truly unbearable. It was no different from rotting flesh. In the end, Yi Qing had them soak in this bloodbath for an entire night. You can come out, but the night soul beast, Yi Qing spoke gravely. Lei Yan immediately kept his mouth shut. Chapter 22-27, Evil Fruit, 1. Nangong Lai was smart and stuffed his nose so that he could bear things better. Qin Feng and Yunchen were also rather calm. But this was Jing Ze's first experience with this amount of blood and he looked very conflicted. Mu Xing was the only one who looked like it was completely normal to be soaking in a pool of demon blood. The reason Yi Qing had them soak inside the pool of demon blood was because the demons in this evil soul forest were very special. Their blood could nourish one's veins and tendons. It was several hundred years later after the evil soul forest was completely conquered that people realized this secret. Although Yi Qingtang had been guiding Lei Yan and the rest and adjusting their cultivation methods, this was a good chance to strengthen their foundations. Especially since they had just endured a highly intense battle and their bodies would be extra receptive to external nourishment. After Yi Qingtang saw that they had settled down, she also submerged herself into the blood pool. It must be said, the smell of demon blood was really exciting. Qin Feng and the others didn't know the true effects of this demon blood. They thought it was just to evade the night soul beast's pursuit. After a full day of battle, those teenagers were exhausted and soon fell asleep while leaning against the side of the pit. The next morning, Yi Qingtang woke up those sleeping teenagers. Covered in that dreadful stench, Yi Qingtang chased them out of the cave before they even had the chance to stretch their limbs. To continue hunting and killing even more demons. At this moment, they all wished for death. Several days passed in this way. Nangong Lai couldn't even bear to think about the kind of life they had been living over the past few days. The moment daylight broke, they would be chased out of the cave by Yi Qing to hunt and kill demons. When the sun set, they would then drag those demon carcasses back to soak in their blood. While they were soaking in the pool of blood, Yi Qing would also highlight unsatisfactory points during their battles that day. Every day, they would listen groggily to Yi Qing's lecturing, before finally succumbing to the sweet darkness of sleep. But they didn't know if it was just their imagination. Originally, they thought that they would definitely be utterly exhausted after a few days, and end up being half dead. But every morning when they woke up, they would feel like the fatigue from the previous day had been wiped clean. Even their battles with those demons now felt much easier. Boss is right. Real battles are the key. I feel like I'm showing signs of a breakthrough. Nangong Lai could feel the spirit energy inside his body gradually increase. He felt very moved. In the past, he had been unable to focus on cultivation. But after being dragged to this godforsaken place by Yi Qing, he would be killed by the night soul beast if he didn't survive those battles. Under such circumstances, he wouldn't get the chance to slack off even if he wanted to. Nangong Lai was not alone. Jing Ze and the rest could also feel their powers increase by the day. Qin Feng's case was more special. His powers had been declining but had now stabilized. Since entering the Netherworld Academy, this was the first time he felt his spirit energy increase. He could hardly believe it. After discovering the benefits, the teenagers didn't even need Yi Qing to urge them. Every morning, as if having gotten a shot of adrenaline, they would automatically go hunting and killing demons as a team. Yi Qingtang saw the changes in this group of brats, the hint of a smile surfacing in her eyes. One day, she didn't follow them on their hunt. Instead, she emerged from the blood pool to go to a nearby river to wash off the stench. But right after she emerged from the blood pool, a gut-wrenching pain spread across her chest. Chapter 22-28, Evil Fruit, 2. Yi Qingtang's vision instantly turned blurry. It felt like something was about to burst out of her heart. That kind of piercing pain was enough to make Yi Qingtang break out in cold sweat. The divine phoenix seal is about to disappear. Yi Qingtang's brows were tightly furrowed. Cold sweat dripped down from her face. She had already previously sensed that the divine phoenix seal would soon dispel. And today, the feeling had grown in intensity. By now, she could more or less confirm that in less than a month, the divine phoenix seal would completely disappear. By then, she would not be able to control the heart of the heavenly Tao. I need to find the evil fruit as soon as possible. Yi Qingtang took a deep breath to suppress the intense pain in her chest. The evil fruit was the main reason why Yi Qingtang had come to the evil soul forest. In her previous life, although Yi Qingtang had never been to the evil soul forest, she had heard many legends surrounding it. This was where the fiend celestial died and a place feared by all in the second domain. But danger and opportunity were two sides of the same coin. Where the fiend celestial fell, all his Dharma treasures were buried along with him. The precious treasures of a fiend celestial were enough to drive people mad. Everyone only knew that the treasures were inside the evil soul forest. But this place was expansive and filled with danger no matter where you looked. Few people dared to step into such a place. For many years, the various major factions in the second domain had tried to get the fiend celestial's hidden treasures. Spy Cloud, which Yi Qingtang had encountered earlier, was probably here for the fiend celestial's treasures. But the fiend celestial's treasures were not critical to Yi Qingtang now. What she needed was a type of fruit which grew inside the evil soul forest, the evil fruit. In her previous life, in the stories told about the evil soul forest, Yi Qingtang heard that although the fiend celestial died, its resentment remained in this evil soul forest, transforming this place into a land of grievances. In addition, other countless bitter souls were buried here. The fiend celestial's grievance enshrouded the place, tainting the entire forest. The resentment of the fiend celestial and those bitter souls nourished this vast piece of land, producing a strange fruit. It was called the evil fruit. Legend had it that the grievance concentrated inside the evil fruit was enough to suppress everything. It could suppress even the most fearsome demon in the world. When Yi Qingtang first heard of this evil soul forest, the idea had already formed in her mind. Unfortunately, in her previous life, she had been homeless and desolate. How could she compete against those major powers from the second domain? To get at the treasures in the evil soul forest? But in this life, Yi Qingtang had the first mover's advantage. She had come to the evil soul forest way before those factions, just to see if she could have the chance to find the evil fruit and use it to seal up the heart of the heavenly Tao, but Yi Qingtang recollected her encounter with Spy Cloud yesterday. It was clear that the major factions in the second domain had never given up their exploration of the evil soul forest. Now that Spy Cloud had dispatched so many men here, it must be because they had discovered something. And Spy Cloud could not possibly be the only one who knew. Unfortunately, quite a number of major factions in the second domain had probably also joined this venture. Don't tell me they've already found the fiend celestial's treasures? Yi Qingtang really couldn't figure it out. Would Spy Cloud send so many men if not for the fact that they had discovered the fiend celestial's hidden stash? It was hard for Yi Qingtang to be sure. But after night fell and Qin Feng and the rest returned, they more or less confirmed Yi Qingtang's surmisation. Boss, guess who saw this afternoon? Nangong Lai asked mysteriously the moment he saw Yi Qingtang. Who? Yi Qingtang asked. Void Door and Falling Water Pavilion, Nangong Lai answered. Chapter 22-29, Evil Fruit, 3. These two were very powerful factions in the second domain. They were even more powerful than the Crimson League. First Spy Cloud, and now Void Door and Falling Water Pavilion, all three of them appearing in the evil soul forest at the same time. It couldn't possibly be just an aimless treasure hunt. Yi Qingtang believed that she had guessed correctly earlier. How many people were there? Yi Qingtang wanted more confirmation. Quite a number. We didn't dare to reveal ourselves and only managed to observe them from afar. At least 1,000 from each side. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. Two major factions dispatching so many men at the same place. Did you hear anything? Yi Qingtang asked. Nangong Lai and the others shook their heads, but Mu Xing suddenly spoke up. I thought I heard them say something about some treasure. What? Yi Qingtang was taken aback. Yunshen looked at Mu Xing strangely. Little senior sister, how did you overhear that? Mu Xing was not the most powerful in the group. Even Qin Feng didn't manage to overhear those men. How did Mu Xing manage to know? The girl lowered her head to look at the puppet in her arms. It heard them. Mu Xing could now control her puppet within a 1-mile radius. Unlike humans, the puppet had no aura or scent. It could go near those two factions without being detected. Did it hear anything else? Yi Qingtang asked. Mu Xing took some time to think about it. They seem to have found something, but it also appears that there is some conflict. Everything was very unclear. Mu Xing's words gave Yi Qingtang's heart a slight jolt. It looked like she had guessed correctly. But in her previous life, the evil soul forest's secret was only completely exposed 200 to 300 years later. Why had they already discovered the location of the treasures now? But Yi Qingtang soon understood the situation. Discovering the location of the hidden treasure didn't mean that they could get at it. The Fiend Celestial's tomb was full of dangers, and even after knowing its location, the various factions probably spent hundreds of years before they could finally achieve their goal. On top of that, there were the demons and night soul beasts in the evil soul forest as obstacles. It was only natural they wouldn't obtain the treasure so fast. At this thought, Yi Qingtang hurriedly said to Mu Xing and the rest, for the time being, don't go out over the next few days. It was likely that the various factions had just discovered the location of the Fiend Celestial's tomb. Lei Yan and the rest had just come to train. Who knew what would happen if they bumped into each other? Luckily, Yi Qingtang had already taken some precautions. She did not let them go near the core of the evil soul forest, and so it was less likely for them to be discovered by the other factions. Even so, Yi Qingtang didn't wish to encounter any of the factions. Once the Fiend Celestial's tomb was discovered, the evil soul forest would become a major battlefield for the various factions. Pack up your things today. I will lead you out of the evil soul forest tomorrow night, Yi Qingtang said solemnly. We are leaving now? But that night soul beast, you have soaked in the blood enough now. It will be fine, Yi Qingtang answered. Just in case, they had no choice but to temporarily halt their training. Yi Qingtang didn't wish for this bunch of brats to get embroiled in the fight for the Fiend Celestial's treasure. After hearing Yi Qing's words, conflicted feelings arose in the hearts of Lei Yan and the rest. But they didn't say anything. Since Yi Qing had instructed them to do so, they would comply. The brats pondered over this matter for a few more seconds before going to settle the spoils of today's battle. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang's heart grew a little heavier. She had to get that evil fruit as soon as possible. Chapter 2230, Mental Demons, 1. Yi Qingtang would not remain too long on this mainland because of the Temple of Paragon. She was trying to make use of the Inter Academy competition and the Netherworld Academy's wind calming pearl to leave this mainland. The matter of the first domain had already been settled. Yi Qingtang's most pressing issue now was that heart of the heavenly Tao which could bring her trouble at any time. The only clue that could unravel this mystery was her mother. The Dragon Emperor clan? Her mother had been missing for a long time, and the Dragon Emperor clan had been trying to find traces of her mother all this while. Since Yi Qingtang was in the second domain now, she wanted to visit the Dragon Emperor clan and try to see if she could find her mother. But before that, Yi Qingtang needed to get that evil fruit and seal the heart of the heavenly Tao. Although Yi Qingtang said that she wanted to bring Lei Yan and the rest out of the evil soul forest, they weren't really going to leave. After all, their training had yet to be completed. Although every one of them had improved, they still had a fair degree to go before being able to enter the Inter Academy competition. Yi Qingtang planned to bring them to the borders of the evil soul forest, far away from the core region. The various factions had already entered the evil soul forest. They shouldn't bump into them at the borders. Having realized how much they had progressed over the past few days, those brats were now reluctant to leave this place, which they had been desperate to escape from earlier. The feeling of their powers continuously improving made their blood surge with excitement. They were at that energetic, vibrant age. Which youth wouldn't wish to keep improving their powers? Qin Feng approached Yi Qing late at night. Teacher Yi. Qin Feng seldom came to talk to Yi Qing. Yi Qing glanced at him. What's the matter? Qin Feng looked somewhat conflicted. He did not know how he felt about this teacher. Previously, he had already lost all hope and allowed himself to descend into an endless abyss. But unexpectedly, after training under Yi Qing, he had started to progress. Qin Feng said, "My powers are increasing." Yi Qing smiled. That's a good thing, right? Qin Feng shook his head. Since I entered the Netherworld Academy, my powers have been deteriorating non-stop. Many teachers have tried all sorts of ways but to no avail. Likewise, he had also given up. Yi Qing wanted him to plant flowers and he mechanically complied. He was just passing the time, waiting to be kicked out of the Netherworld Academy. He had heard Yi Qing's teachings to Jing Zhe and the rest. He could tell that this teacher was different from the others. Apart from himself, even someone like Lei Yan kept improving under Yi Qing. And so now, Qin Feng did not believe that his increase in powers had nothing to do with Yi Qing. I want to know, how did you do it? Yi Qing looked at Qin Feng. He was a man of few words but was a clear-headed youth. If not for the fact that she owed Qin Zhuo one, she might not have spent so much effort on Qin Feng. The Qin family has a powerful killer bloodline. But do you know why, apart from Qin Zhuo, it has been difficult for the Qin family to produce another powerful practitioner? Yi Qing asked. Qin Feng shook his head. Yi Qing chuckled. The killer bloodline is also the reason behind the Qin family's decline. Qin Feng was taken aback. Since he was a young boy, he had been taught that the killer bloodline was very powerful. But this was the first time he was hearing that the killer bloodline was the reason behind the Qin family's decline. Chapter 2231, Mental Demons, 2. Teacher, please explain it to me. Qin Feng requested in a solemn voice. Do you know why after you came to me, I didn't teach you any skills? Instead, I had you go and plant flowers? Qin Feng shook his head. Yi Qing replied simply, because of mental demons. Qin Feng was taken aback. A sliver of embarrassment flashed across his face as if he was sheepish about being found out. The killer bloodline is very powerful, but it is a bloodline with very potent killer characteristics. It can bring you unfathomable power, but it can also bring you unshakable mental demons, Yi Qing continued. In the beginning, when the Qin family first became famous, the killer bloodline had been put on a pedestal. But after several decades of great repute, the family suddenly declined. Thereafter, although the family produced quite a number of strong practitioners, most of them died young. No one knew the reason behind this. After the decline of the powerful practitioner from the Qin family's first generation, the Qin Zhuo's status in the second domain became increasingly lower. In the end, after being subdued for thousands of years, they finally produced Qin Zhuo, who led the Qin family to the peak again. But after Qin Zhuo's death, the Qin family was unable to find another powerful practitioner to continue his legacy. The moment mental demons appear, there are only two endings. The first is to forever be tormented by the mental demons and have one's lifespan shortened. The second is to experience a major decline in your practice and powers. Yi Qing explained. I don't know how much you know about the killer bloodline. But if I am not wrong, your ancestors should have already found out that the killer bloodline can result in mental demons. And so they implemented some changes and altered your situation so that your lifespan wouldn't be shortened by mental demons. However, this also resulted in the possibility that you will find it difficult to progress to higher levels. The watershed line should be at the Divine Lord stage. In her previous life 100 years into the future, the Qin family was completely ruined and disappeared from the world. Yi Qingtang just happened to have heard someone mention that it was due to the Qin family's killer bloodline. The killer bloodline was a double-edged sword. The more powerful it was, the higher the chances of you developing mental demons. The consequences included death after descending into complete madness or an absolute mental breakdown. The Qin family ancestors must have been afraid of the Qin family being eliminated by the killer bloodline, and so implemented some changes. But Qin Feng said with uncertainty. Qin Zhuo was an exception. His willpower was much stronger than your usual person. Only someone with enough determination can restrain the mental demons. Yi Qing explained. In the cursed land, even in his withered state, Qin Zhuo was still able to maintain his nature. This was definitely not something that ordinary people could do. So, Teacher Yi, you had me plant flowers to cultivate my willpower, to decrease the killer aura in my body? Qin Zhuo asked. Yi Qing nodded. If you can control your mental demons, you can become the second Qin Zhuo. You can even surpass him and become the most powerful practitioner in the Qin family. The words made Qin Feng's eyes flash. Without saying another word, he turned and left. Yi Qing suddenly spoke up again. If you can subdue your mental demons, I will give you a present. A present which should have been returned to the Qin family. Yi Qingtang had not forgotten Qin Zhuo's request, but she hoped that the person who inherited the sword would not tarnish Qin Zhuo's great name. Qin Feng was taken aback. He looked at Yi Qing with an increasingly conflicted expression. He had only known about mental demons not long ago. He looked at Yi Qing in confusion. Why did Yi Qingtang know so much about the Qin family bloodline? Even more so than him, a descendant of the Qin family?